May the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our redeemer, and it is in his name, which is his authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Aman. Shalom. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Ni hao, namaste. Osayo, Anakituya, Ohio. I see you. Namaste. Kamsamida. Habarigani. Manut. Jambo, Bimini Kofi, Nina Faraka, Kutara the Wimbe. Aquahaba. Itasin. Bakwa Tav. Barakalad Sham Yahaba. Shalom Yasrael. Shalom Achiyat. Yasrael. Zion. Kofi, Elective Servant of Christ, Mashalom Chi. Hello, everybody. I'm Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. And we're appreciative of another opportunity that we have to be in front of you one more again. Thank you for joining us and spending some time with us today. Grand Rising. Come on in, everybody. Come on in. The water is fine. Come on in. The water is fine. We hope that you guys are doing well. We hope that you guys are having a great start to your week. For those who are coming from Early Rising Bible Study Session, thanks for coming in again with us. We are appreciative, so we're appreciative of the things that you're doing to help us in our journey of becoming greater as a nation. And we thank you so much, everybody on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, podcast. We'll have another TikTok channel joining us in just a little bit as well. We're thankful and grateful. For those on TikTok, I'm sorry you're going to disappear for just a second. Hold on. But thank you guys for joining us. As always, we appreciate you. Got to make sure the battery life is going to last correctly. Amen. Amen. Praise Yah. So thank you, everybody, for being on. We appreciate you so much again. And we thank you for being on with us. We thank you for spending some time with us again. And we appreciate you. I'm going to go ahead and lift this up. So come on. So I can read your comments better. But thank you for coming on in with us. We appreciate you. We give all honor once again to the Most High. We give all praise and honor to my wife, or to him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives life is able to be honored. Please check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A-N-D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. Even on TikTok, Bloom and Flourish too. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And we're thankful and grateful for everything that she's doing in diaspora to heal. And she has many different tinctures and natural medicines that can help you guys in your journeys for better health. Thank you guys for being on all over the world, on all these platforms. We appreciate you. If it's your first time with us, hopefully it won't be your last time. To the moderators, ministerial staff, SOC, we appreciate you. Moderators, I bow down. I appreciate you. You guys do what you do. We ask that those that are coming on, if it's your first time, feel free to ask any questions, to challenge stuff. Even if you feel like you need to tell me something about myself and my appearance, because I know my appearance doesn't match everybody's expectation of what I should look like, etc. But if you can at least make sure that you treat each other like human beings, and we treat each other as such, and even in the chat as well, we ask that you do so. We have people of many different ages to come on here, and TikTok is always looking for an excuse to say why we're doing something that is wrong, because we come out here and we push the truth. So if you can do that for us, we appreciate you. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your gifts. Thank you for your times. Thank you for all these things, those who do things behind the scenes, etc. We really appreciate you so very much. So let's say hello to everybody. How are you doing? Shalom to everybody once again. Peace be upon you. Shalom. Shalom Allah. Sham Yechava. Barak Allah. Sham Yechava. How are you doing? Sister Beverly. How you doing? Minister Nice. Sister Denise. Sister Snett. Brother Charles. And Sister Snett, we need to get back on track from what we were supposed to have scheduled. So we'll try to get that together. How you doing, Sister Latoya? How you doing, Anthony? Sister Barbara? Yeah, everybody. Lady Cobra, Sister Monica. If I miss your name, charge it to my head and not to my heart. I appreciate everybody on here. How you doing, Shang B? Or Shang Bai? I still don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Molly. Romac. Catania. Michael. Auntie Marion. Sister Gertrude, J-Mag, everybody who's on here, we appreciate you so very much. Sister Renee, everybody. If I missed your name, once again, charge to my head, not to my heart. I'll try to catch as many as I can on all these platforms coming up, but we appreciate you. How you doing, Sister Tori? Sister Valerie, Amon down there, down south. Hopefully everything is creeping in, or well, you're getting more situated down there, praying for you as always. One Cremus, I believe. Poppy, right? To everybody, we appreciate you. Or is it Cremas Papi? Not sure how you pronounce it. Trinya Bat Zion. Okay, daughter of Zion. How you doing? To everybody who's on, we appreciate your presence. All righty. So let us get into today. We've been in this series for a little while now, and I'm not sure when the series is going to end, but let's stay in it. If you need to catch up on the series, you can always go to our YouTube channel. We've been in this series though for a little while now. The series called "The System Is Sus." The system is sus. It's suspect. Tells you one thing, but does another. We believe what the system says, but we really shouldn't. We should be able to look at we should be able to look at what happens through the system and see if something's wrong, right? And that it is not for us. It's not for anybody, really, right? But those of us who are realizing, acknowledging that, and coming into a better knowledge of who we are, especially within the Most High, we recognize this, and we want to continue down this journey. Today, we're going to talk about lawful or legal. How you doing, Sister Deborah? I think I saw Benjamin come on. Sister Betty, everybody, Big Brother Thomas. Today we're going to talk about lawful or legal. Many people do things that are legal and assume because it's legal, it's lawful. And many people are afraid to do things that are lawful, assuming that it's legal. And you're in a system that tells you that their statutes and different things that they have, their common law, right, that you bow down to, and therefore the things that are not common law but are statutes and different things that are optional. We have got to a place where we've begun to believe that the things that are legal are more important than the things that are lawful. And this is in many different areas in life. We could talk about governments, which we shall today. We can talk about relationships, which we shall today. We can talk about the word of Yah, which we shall today. We can talk about the way that we live. Hello, Sister Deja, and hello, Sister Nadine, right? And how you doing, Cedric? Thanks for being on. So the system has us in a place where we need to recognize it very quickly. How you doing, Sister Sage? We need to realize very quickly the difference between what is lawful and legal, and then not that. Once we realize it, because some of us have come to the realization of the difference. Once we come into the realization of the difference, now the question is, will you do what is lawful? Even if it means that you sometimes might have to do something that's not legal. Now, so I have to be careful. This is for educational purposes only. I am not telling you to break the law. I am not telling you that when you go into the world to not make sure that you do what the law is, right? What I'm saying is to know the law and to know what law supersedes what is legal. Because some things that are legal are lawful, but not everything that is legal is lawful. Right. Here's a quick, and I won't go deep into this because they'll take us down if we really get deep into this. We talk about some of this stuff more offline than we do online nowadays. How you doing, Spike Me? So I had to be careful how deep I go into this. But it wasn't too long ago, everybody was saying that you better get the jab, right? Everybody remember that wasn't that long ago. I'm old enough to remember that you better get the jab. And if you don't get the jab, you really don't respect other people's livelihoods, and you want people to die. And you should want to be inside, and you should make sure that you wear a mask so that you will be able to make sure you protect people from others and that you won't get sick and all these different things. That was very legal, but it wasn't lawful, right? How you doing, Black Steel? How you doing, Happy Haze? And once again, this is for educational purposes only, but I just want to give you the difference, right? It was very legal to do that, but you could get an exemption letter, right? Even a religious exemption letter. You could even try to ask your doctor for an affidavit to ask them, are one of the side effects that I'll get to this, can you promise me that one of the side effects is not death? And there were things that could protect the law, but many people were more concerned about what was legal than what was lawful. So many people just bowed down and didn't have the mind of, if the job says, well, we're not going to go ahead and take it, to go above them to the people that they report to say these people are doing things that are not only unlawful, but it's also illegal. Right? We have a mindset that just because somebody says it's legal means that it's automatically lawful, but law always supersedes legal. Well, if I give a quick working definition, we can go into Black's Law Dictionary, we can go into USC, United States Code, we can go into UCC, Uniform Commercial Code, we could go into Nuremberg Code, which is the code that has the code of ethics. That was something the United States actually helped to put into effect with the Nuremberg trials in what, the 40s or the 50s. And then after that, the U.S. Army in the 50s started instituting, and in the 1990s, the American Doctors Association finally bowed down and said, okay, we have to go through that and things like that. But if I just give you a quick working definition, law doesn't give rights, law protects rights. How you doing, Sister Judith? If I can just give a quick working definition, law doesn't give rights, law protects rights. And we have much time to talk about it. So if you want to hang in there a little bit, I can set the foundation a little bit more. Praise God. Because some people, they know about this. They know about the difference. They know about Black's Law Dictionary. They know about Uniform Commercial Code. They know about United States Code, right? They know about what is lawful, biblically speaking. They know about canonical law. They know about theoretical law. They know about the laws of the universe. They know about the kingdom law, marital law of attraction, law of first mention, universal law, public and private law, substantive law, common law, law of equity, maritime law or admiralty law. They know about natural law, which is why you can't patent something that is made by the Most High by law, right? So there's a lot of different things, places we can go where people might not even be ready to go there yet and see how we institute these things correctly. But let me give you an example, right? Let me give you an example, right? Let me help you out. How you doing? Is it A Willier? I'm not saying it, I'm probably not saying that right, but thanks for being part of the community. Jermaine King, everybody, thank you for being on. Right, but let me give you an example to help. How you doing, Sister Sherry? Hola, mommy. Let me give you an example. Legally, the United States of America the United States is a country, at least so you think. And the United States has a capital called Washington, D.C. That's legal. It's not true, though, but it's legal. But is it lawful? Let me give you an example, right? How you doing, Brother Jermaine? Right? So legally, the United States on paper is a country, and on paper it has a capital, right? Can we agree with that? Legally. I didn't say lawfully, for those who know where I'm going. How you doing, Sister Nadine? But legally, right? Let's just start in the same place, right? And build up this foundation so we can get a little deeper, right? But before the questions come in, you got to know what the foundation is. You have to know what we're talking about, right? Legally, right? Legally. I'm going to tell you what the United States Code says. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm going to tell you what you can go look for yourself and verify what I'm saying, right? Legally, right? You think the United States is a country, right? I mean, can we just agree? This is what I'm saying. Legally, when you went to school, they taught you United States was a country, right? In your mind, the United States is 50 states that make up a country. Is that correct? I mean, I just want to make sure. See, before we go into place, everybody trying to figure out what I'm going to say. You might know what I'm going to say. You might not. But allow me to give you, let's just have a place where we can meet. And if I didn't say so, how you doing, Marky? Right? And how you doing, Sister Stacy? Let's just at least meet in the same place. Legally, they taught you it was a country, and they legally treat it like it's a country, right? But it's not lawful. Why? Because the United States has this written down for you to look at. Look up 28. I'm sorry. Yeah, you look up Google if you want 28 USC. That stands for United States Code 28 USC 3002. That's 3002. 28 USC 3002. You got that? How you doing, Mr. Tamara? Right. Before somebody assumes, I want you to know where we're starting. Right. We got to see where we're starting. 28 USC 3002. 1515. So 28 USC 3002 15 28 USC 3002 15. Okay. 28 USC 3002 15. And there's three subsections we're going to look at, which are the only ones that you'll find: A, B, and C. 28 USC 3002 15 A, B, and C. Okay. When you look it up, right, Google it. And when you look it up, this is what you'll find. 28 USC 3002 15 A says what? It says, A, the United States is a corporation. So we don't see country in there at all, right? But you still might think it's legal because the United States Code is telling you exactly what it is, right? So then let's go again. 28 USC 3002 15B behind that tells you that it is a board. That's why you have what? A president and a vice president and a secretary, right? The list goes on and on as far as positions, treasurers, things like that. Those are things that you find on the board in your corporations or in your your churches even, right? They have these things, members of boards, right? So they can try and get that government money, right? So you can be a nonprofit, right? They have the same structure because it's the same thing. 28 USC 3002 15A tells you that you were dealing with a corporation. 28 USC 3002 15B tells you were dealing with B, a board. And 28 USC 3002 15C tells us that it is instrumentalization. In other words, it can be a negotiated instrument. Just like money is, the United States operates the same way. That's the three. Now, in there, when you read it, you tell me where you see that the United States is a country. Thank you, user 1208. Appreciate it. Right? Right? So there are many countries that are corporations, by the way. If you look it up, the United States is not the only one, right? But by the United States, when it defines itself, it tells you that it is not a country. Yeah, it doesn't say anything about it being a country, right? You won't find that in the definition, not your definition. Like we said, this rising for the early risers Bible study session, folk, we talked about receive ye my joy. Don't look for your definition, look for theirs, right? This is what we call in apologetics the burden of proof. The burden of proof, I get that off of me real quick. I'm not going to give you opinion. I'm going to give you contextual facts. What does the United States say about themselves? That's proper interpretation. How did they say it when they wrote it about themselves? Okay. How you doing, Amber Stone? Thanks for being part of the community. Franco, thanks for being part of the community. Right? So hear what I'm saying. How you doing, Nikki Style? So hear what I'm saying. 28 USC 3002 15A, it's corporation. 28 USC 3002 15B, it's a board. 28 USC 3002 15C, it's instrumentalization. Nowhere do you see country. Now, I said also, you think that Washington, D.C. is a capital, correct? You think that Washington, D.C. is the capital. But you have to ask yourself, why does every state have a capital then? In your mind, you just think that that's what it is. It just is what it is, right? Because you were raised like that. There's 50 states. All the states have capitals. I used to know them by heart. I cannot remember nearly half of them, or probably not even 10 of them nowadays, right? But I used to know. I think Albany is capital of New York, supposedly, and isn't Annapolis supposed to be the capital of Maryland, and Richmond is supposed to be the capital of Virginia, and I think Sacramento is supposed to be the capital of California, and Salem is Salem the capital of Oregon? I'm not even sure. I used to know these like that. I think Austin's the capital of Texas. As Tallahassee is supposed to be the capital of Florida. I don't remember. I used to know these, right? But and some of y'all would think New York City is the capital of New York, but no, Albany is, right? And that's the place that they protect the capital. How you doing, Walter? Thanks for being on again. I'm gonna have to see if we can figure out something, because I know we got a language barrier. Sometimes I have to see if I can figure out something to put in the to help out, to make sure that you can read what we're saying. I don't know how to do it yet, right? How you doing, Coco? So we can see clearly that something's up, because United States doesn't say they're a country. And then you think that you have a capital called Washington, D.C., but Washington, D.C. by law, right? Washington, D.C. by law, right? Big old thick law dictionary here. Washington, D.C. by law, not by what's legal. There's a difference between lawful and legal. Washington, D.C. by law is considered to be a territory, just like Puerto Rico, just like the Philippines. Washington, D.C. is not a state. It is a territory. It is important to know. And by the way, if you look up the definition, you'll find that it's not even a territory anymore, because the land that it's owned is supposed to have been given back to the state that owns it. But Congress has no power outside of Washington, D.C., and Washington, D.C. has no power unless it's under the jurisdiction of, a matter of fact, it has to be subject to Congress. Right? And this is called Black's Law Dictionary. There's 12 editions, I believe. This is the 11th edition, right? We just came out of class. We just finished our second semester dealing with this, right? Black's Law Dictionary, right? Doesn't mean a black man's dictionary. His last name is Black before somebody goes there. Okay, praise God. All right. Sometimes people say that, go straight into something that's not even what I'm talking about. Okay. Black's Law Dictionary, right, which is the most recognized and used dictionary in Western law, which is something that has infused itself and is so ubiquitous that it's worldwide, right? They will tell you that Washington, D.C. is not a capital. It is not even a city. It is not even a state, right? Because a state is what? A state, by definition, is a nation. A state, by definition, is a country. How you doing, Yasanma? You see? A state, by definition, is a country. Look it up. Right? Libya, when they were getting ready, Gaddafi was getting ready to make a bank, right? It was, and they had their bank about to go and everything, and they were getting ready to put the currency that was going to blow all these other currencies out the border. Guess what they called it? They called it a state bank, because it belongs to the state of Libya. This is why you have something called the State of the Union Address. They're trying to tell you, see, you think of the state as these little cities that kind of are big versions of cities that are governed by governors, but you don't recognize a governor is somebody that represents a king by definition. Y'all were just discussing it, yeah, because it's real. It's so, I used the word earlier, ubiquitous. It's in every fabric of our lives, to the point to where you can't escape this. You're going to hear this stuff even if you don't think about it, even if you think it's folly, even if you think it's foolish, right? You have to recognize it at some point, because this is what's here. This is what you're living in. You know, you shouldn't be of it, but you're in it. How you doing, True Hebrew 504? So you might not be of it, but you're in it. How you doing, Susan? You not be of it, but you're in it. You better know what you're dealing with. Right? So why does every state have a capital? Because every state, by definition, is a nation, and every nation has a capital, a place that you protect the capital that you make. A state that makes decisions, a place in the state that makes decisions on how the capital, including the people, are used as instrumentalization. That's why every person has a birth certificate. The birth certificate is not registered to the federal government, is it? Your birth certificate is registered to the state, because every state is making money off of your birth certificate. Now, once again, for those, before people have doubts or this and that, if it's your first time, Google what I'm saying. Look up 28 USC 300215 subsections A, B, and C, right? Look up the definition of state and nation. Look up the lawful definition and the legal definition. What are we talking about today? Lawful or legal? And many people are trying to be legal and don't realize that just because it's legal doesn't mean it's lawful. You hear what I'm saying? Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. Look, I'm here to tell you, there's a lot of men out there that tell you that they should run through as many women and get a high, what they call body count. But just because it's legal doesn't mean it's lawful. It's going to mess you up. You hear what I'm saying? It's going to mess you up. Just because you don't need a man for this and blah, blah, and I can raise my children, babies, and this and that, or whatever, you sure can. It's legal. But baby girl, we should make sure that we set up a society for you, that you can be protected, that you can still be in your work, that you can make as much money as you can and still be protected, that you should have your feminine values to be looked at as divine rather than something that's a stepping stone for us to be able to do something on you or over you or whatever. You're not a doormat, but at the same time, you were designed to make sure that you and I come together as one. You can do it by yourself. It's totally legal, but I'm here to tell you there's some side effects because it's not natural law. Do you, baby girl, like it's legally, you can do whatever you want. You can do you. Just know it's not lawful. You hear what I'm saying? Like, we live in this weird fascination with, if it's legal, I can do it. Yes, just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. Somebody says it's illegal to do meth. That's great. But guess what? It's legal for them to give you meth. Concerta. Something that's supposed to do to you what Ritalin supposed to do to you. It's legal to go ahead for the doctor to give it to you. But is it lawful? Are you catching the difference? This is why we got to set the foundation. We have to have a proper foundation. We have to have a proper foundational discussion. There's have to be contextual facts, not context without facts, and facts without context. We have to be completely correct on this. Does it meet the requirements of natural law to give you something that kills you and say that it heals you? Right? I'm going to bless you with something. Now, this is not a blessing what they're doing to you, but I want to bless you with some information. If I wanted to make sure, right, watch this. You wouldn't think about this. But do you know that the United States, and that really all over the Western world, but especially in the United States, and many of you listening are listening from the United States, and many of you listening other places, govern yourselves, or your governments govern themselves according to what the United States does. So many people don't even recognize that they prescribe diabetes to you. Did you know that? How you doing, Sister Arshia? And thank you for your likes, for your shares. Thank you. If you're on YouTube, feel free to like, share, and subscribe, all that great stuff. If you're on Facebook, feel free to go ahead and be part of what we're doing. And check us out on a regular basis. And we have many different recordings all over the place. And check out our podcast and all the great stuff that we have. And the people that are part of our community that have many different things that we sow into each other. Thank y'all for being on so much. We appreciate you. How you doing, Lisa? How you doing, Honeybee? How you doing, BWN Sugar? Right? You said, what does legal advices mean? We can look that up. I have to look up advice because advice for me is like when you said it, something's missing in the definition of my mind. So if you give me a second, or maybe even what I'm talking about will kind of show you kind of what that is. But I just want to set up a couple more things foundational. We might have to look it up, right? But just be patient with me if you don't mind. If I miss it, maybe just give me a reminder later on. How you doing? Alvis, is it Alvis Vanessa or Alvis Vanessa? How you doing? Suck like Chuck. Thanks for being part of the community. Right. So peep game, because they hitting us with some stuff and we're not aware of what they're doing to us. Peep game now. Stay with me, roll with me. Right? Everything that's lawful is not legal. Everything that's legal is not lawful. Do you not know that they prescribe diabetes to people? Y'all say that doesn't make any sense. If I go to the doctor's office, he gives me a medicine. If I wanted to prescribe diabetes, if I wanted to make sure, watch this. If I were to go to, if I were to look up what the FDA or what ADA or what, the federal government tells people about what they should eat if they deal with diabetes, you know what I'll find? Right? I'll find. So if they say your blood pressure is all over the place, so they say you're diabetic, guess what I'll find? They say eat stuff like honey, orange juice, and they say raw honey, right? Natural honey, but they'll say eat honey, drink some orange juice, have some oatmeal, and I forget what the other part is, right? But they'll tell you raw honey, orange juice, oatmeal, and something else. Might be cereal, might be something else. I'm not sure, right? Now they'll tell you to eat those things. Right? No, I mean everything that's lawful is not legal. You know that, like, for example, right, it's legal to own a slave, but it's not lawful. I mean exactly what I'm saying. I promise you, right? Just hang in there with me. And if you disagree with it or you feel like you need to weed it into whatever you need to be, that's fine. But the words that I use, especially within my culture, are specific, right? And the culture that's making up these laws, they're specific. Just because there's something called legalese, if you will, right? This is a new term that people have been using the last 30 years or so, 40 years or so, legalese, to where you can think that something means something, but it doesn't. For example, if a judge asks you, do you understand what I'm saying? And you say yes, the judge means that you stand under whatever I say. So you have a right when the judge says, do you understand, to either ask questions or to say, no, Your Honor, I do not understand. Or even if you comprehend, you have the right to say, Your Honor, I comprehend what you're saying, but I do not understand. See, they're using legal language, but you're speaking up on something that's lawful. Law always supersedes what's legal, but people don't know how law works. For example, what is the first part of law you should know? Actually, let me finish where I am. I'm gonna come back to you, right? I'm not gonna get distracted off the point, right? Watch this. I will come back to you though. Watch this. So if somebody has diabetes, they're going to say, eat a bunch of honey, drink it, start your day with honey, orange juice, oatmeal, and I forget what the other fourth one is. If you start off with that, do you not know that those things, right, that really are not going to give your body much of anything, are going to basically spike up all your levels? And when they spike up all your levels, where are you going to go? How you doing, Dr. Zoe? Thanks for being part of the community, right? When your levels spike up, where are you going? When your blood pressure and everything messed up, where are you going to get help? That is the Food and Drug Administration, right? I don't know, when you have high blood pressure, all of a sudden, when your blood pressure levels go up, right? When your heart rate begins to go faster, when all of a sudden you're dealing with stuff that's hyper, it's not hypo, it's not regular, it's hyper, okay? When your levels shoot up, dealing with diabetes, when your levels shoot up, as far as, hey, if I'm dealing with diabetes, there's certain things I'm looking for. If you feel like I will fully admit to you, I do not know every single medical term, but I do know exactly what I'm talking about. Yes, oatmeal. Okay, never mind. Oatmeal in and of itself, right? If you go by what the Food and Drug Administration tells you you're supposed to eat, all those things spike your levels up. That's factual. If you want to go ahead, you argue against other doctors that are bringing this to our attention. Western doctors, not just people that you say we call doctors, okay? You go look for that, right? For those of you who will look it up or just want to listen long enough so you know what to look up, okay? When you do that, they spike your level up. Guess where you're going? You're going to the doctor. By the way, fine, if you don't like that, when you go to the doctor's office and you're sitting there and they offer you some stuff because you've been there for a while, or maybe they say you need to have some food in your system, question for you, since you don't like that, what are they going to feed you when you get to the hospital? When you're waiting there, right? You're in the field. Okay, that's great. My wife is in the field. My mother-in-law is in the field. I worked for my mother-in-law. We taught people how to make sure they did stuff like phlebotomy. We taught surgical techs. We helped doctors with stuff. We made sure that people knew basics as far as CPR and first aid. We made sure that we helped dentists even with some of the stuff that they have to do intravenously. So, I don't know everything, but I know enough, right? So we're together, right? Let's have some place where we can at least agree. Like, before we get into the disagreement piece, and I don't know if it's you, I'm reading multiple platforms, but I'm just saying, stay with me, roll with me, right? Okay. So if I go to the hospital and they feed me graham crackers and they give me orange juice or apple juice or the grape juice, question for you, are the graham crackers great for my health? Does the orange juice and the apple juice, by the way, those are not even real, right? They've processed those, right? It's concentrate and it has high fructose corn syrup. So they tell me to eat this stuff that makes levels spike up. I go to the hospital and the best thing for me to do would be to fast if I'm going through that. If I'm dealing with something that we call diabetes, right? I'm dealing with, right? Or if I deal with something they even call cancer, which basically we're dealing with, we would call it ketosis, right? But let's just go ahead and be simple. If I'm dealing with something called diabetes, or what people are calling high blood pressure and all this stuff, a lot of times you're dealing with stuff that's dealing with your liver and your pancreas, especially your pancreas. You could fast for a while and then start making sure you're eating fruits. If I can make sure I'm eating fresh fruits, fruit, by the way, anything that has a seed in it. So if I'm eating a regular diet of fruit, I'm going to get my pancreas on point, and my pancreas is going to begin to make sure that it regulates. It's not an alterative herb, but the organ is going to function, if you will, like an alterative herb. It's going to bring things back to where it needs to be, that the body might have the proper currency or blood flow. See, the system is such to where we'll argue for something that doesn't even make any sense. I'm going to go to a place because y'all told me to eat the wrong stuff. And then when I get there, you won't have me fast. And then if I do fast, like there's sometimes I'll tell you to fast, but then when I'm not fasting, rather, and they tell me, and it's time for me to break a fast, when I should fast, maybe even up to 2 days, so that I'll have some natural HGH, human growth hormone, that comes into my body, right? But then you break the fast with stuff that's going to spike my levels up again. I've got to ask the question, right? Why are we defending that? I've got to ask the question. I'm not saying anything that's not real. Y'all tell me, have you been to the hospital before and you've been waiting to be seen and you've been waiting for this and waiting for that, or your child waiting to be seen, and they offer y'all graham crackers and they offer you orange juice and apple juice and grape juice, and it comes in those little cups with the little foil or whatever that is on it, and you peel it back? That's high fructose corn syrup. That's a lot of sugar. That's white sugar. I'm not saying white as in white is the bad because of the color. I'm talking about white sugar. It's not even regular sugar. It's not cane sugar. Oh, you over there now? We're praying for you. Praise God, right? But that's what they're trying to do. Now, you got to tell me, once again, is that legal? Yes, that's legal. Is it lawful? Is it natural law? Is your body going to be able to handle that? Of course it's not. You hear what I'm saying? Right? So you can argue it all you want. See, that's why I need you to catch it. You might be arguing something and trying to tell me why it's legal. It doesn't mean it's lawful. Right? It doesn't mean it's lawful. That's the point. Why is it that somebody doesn't tell you that for men, you'll get, I think it's 200, and if you fast for 2 days, you get something like 200 times what it is that you would normally get as far as your HGH. If you're a woman, if you fast for 2 days, you get something like, it might even be 2,000 times the normal HGH that you get when you're constantly eating. But let me just be safe, say 200. You might get 200 times the HGH. If you're a woman, if you fast for 2 days, you'll get 130 times. Might be 1,300, but I'm just being safe. You'll get up to 130 times what it is that you need in HGH just by not eating. First thing that they do, though, in FDA is they say, eat this stuff that spikes your blood level. They send you to the hospital. They feed you stuff that spikes your blood level. And then they say, we don't know what's going on. And then they give you medicine to say, let's go ahead and calm it down. And they won't even tell you that, hey, your pancreas might be out of order. Maybe you need to stop eating a bunch of stuff and just eat fruit for a little while and be faithful. And yes, it's going to hurt your body, because the stuff that your reason why you're eating the fruit is there's a lot of stuff that your body should produce naturally, but it's not. So you're going to eat the fruit. Right? Your body's going to freak out a little bit because you haven't been eating healthy and some other things that are going on health-wise with you. But after a while, the fruit gives you exactly what you need, straight to the source. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're doing well. Fast for a couple of days, start eating some fruit, see what happens to your body. Now, this is for educational purposes only. I'm not a doctor, all right? I am not a healer, and even healers should tell you that they don't heal, but they allow the body to heal itself. So that's not what I'm doing. This is not what I'm teaching, right? But I do want you to recognize what's going on. You need to know how your body works, because they know how your body works, and yet they aren't healing anything. You got to ask yourself, why is it that they'll tell you to cut your grass, to spray your grass for weeds, and then when you get cancer or ketosis, right? Because that's really what we're ultimately dealing with, right? Cancer can come in different forms, or cancer can mean different things, but ultimately we're dealing with your cells breaking down, right? And things happening within the cell, and even a lot of times, even different things like worms or different parasites that are inside the cells that are breaking them down, right? But why don't they tell you that when you get cancer from spraying it, that they actually give you dandelion, or a fake version of dandelion that comes with side effects, when all you had to do was let dandelion grow in your yard and eat the dandelion. Dandelion and officinalis, right? Officinalis meaning it's something that the Roman government used to officially recognize as something that was natural healing, right? Because you're living in a Greco-Roman society. So it's legal to have you spray something to get rid of what would heal you and to get cancer, and then give you a fake version, a chemicalized version of it to heal you, and have you have side effects, deal with dis-ease for the rest of your life. Why did nobody tell us this? Because the people that are over you, it's illegal to make money off of your pain. It is not lawful, though. You hear what I'm saying? It's legal. It's legal to tell you to get rid of stuff. You guys think that nature is going to a manicured lawn. But I want some stuff to grow. I need some stuff. Look, I'm 6'5.5", and there's some stuff like mullein that grows taller than me. I need that to grow. I don't want that cut down. But y'all are in housing units or whatever, communities, sometimes gated communities, right? To where you guys will call on somebody who has stuff growing in their yard and won't even think, maybe I should go over there and pick some of the stuff that's growing. See, natural law. Now, this is what I mean versus legal versus lawful as well, right? Why can you not patent something that naturally grows? Yeah, Rockefellers did that. By the way, the Rockefellers helped to make the school system what it is today, which is why you get Rockefellers helped to create the school system that you're in today. It was already in line with what Thomas Jefferson and others were doing, but they helped to make the school system so that you would work for the Rockefellers and not work for yourself or work for your community. But question, I just got to ask you a question and all this stuff, right? People will question and question and question. Let me ask a question back. I need you to think different. I need you to come outside of somebody else's culture for you and you be inside your own culture. I need you to think different, right? What are we talking about today? Lawful versus legal. This is part of a series we've been doing for a long time called The System It Sucks, right? I need you to catch this, right? I need you to catch this. Are you ready? I need you to catch this. Why is it, right? Just think about this. Why can't you patent what grows naturally? Why can't I go outside and be like, that mullein, that dandelion, that mulberry, that carrots, that strawberry, whatever it is that's growing, that potato? Why can't I patent that and say that it belongs to me by law? Why? How you doing, Ryan? How you doing, Minister Morel? How you doing, Nancy, Sister Nancy? How you doing, Brad? Right? Why can I not patent it? Because I did not create it. But if I were to modify it, I could patent it. That's natural law. That's the nature of it. That has to do with Yahweh's nature, or if you don't want to call him Yahweh, right? Elohim, maybe you want to say that's the nature of the creator. Some of you use the term God because you speak Germanic when you refer to the Most High, right? But that's not your nature, right? So you can't patent what is not your nature. But if I modify it, I can patent because now I put my nature on it, right? So, and by the way, if you don't believe it, look it up. Look up law. Law will tell you specifically, hey, if it is not made by the Most High, you cannot patent it. That's actually what the law says. By the way, you can't, that's why there's certain things that have to be lawful and legal, certain things they can't do to you, and they can't say supersedes your religious belief. Why? Because by law, they said, even in the Declaration of Independence, they made it a point to say that we're doing these things according to the nature of God. Go look it up. I'm not making this stuff up, right? So they said this is about his nature. And then they start messing with stuff to make certain things legal. This is when you get into their statutes that are optional versus common law, which is Yah's law. See, so you're doing some things that are legal but not lawful. See, a statute is legal. It's legal for you to pay taxes, but it's not lawful for you to have to, because taxes are a statute. You just have to know the Supreme Court cases to use as things that have been that are out there that help to or have helped to set precedents. Did you catch that? There are certain things out there that help us to see what sets precedents. You see that? See, so there's law, there's cases in the books right now that you can read that say that I don't have to give the IRS nothing, but you have to know what is lawful. Because it's legal to pay taxes, but it's not lawful. There's a difference, right? If the Most High didn't make it, it's not his nature. Therefore, by natural law, you cannot patent something that you did not create. How you doing, Apostle? Oh, how you doing, Apostle Jabril? Grand rising to you. Shalom. And peace to me upon everybody coming in on all the platforms. Thank you again for being on Facebook and TikTok and YouTube. We appreciate your presence so very much. So we have this weird fascination with this stuff. We don't recognize what's going on. Just because it's legal doesn't mean it's lawful. This is law. By the way, why can't you say that if the creator didn't make it, then it's not natural law for you to patent it? You know why you can't do that? Because that actually comes from something above that. It's called universal law. Well, taxation of land technically isn't lawful either, right? Because taxes are a statute. They're optional. But see, universal law? We don't know what these, or we choose to ignore what these words mean. I see you, Sister Monica. Be safe out there. We choose to ignore what these words mean. Do you hear what I'm saying? What does universe mean? Stop getting into evolution versus this. Stop talking about I believe in creation versus that. Just let's stop being so mystical and having this fight that we can't be practical. Practical. Break down the word universe. What does that mean? Uni, uno, una, etc. Right? Uni means one. Uni means one. What is a verse? Thank you, Minister Morel. You right there. What is a verse? A verse is a sentence. Some of you would try to say a verse because you're in the hip hop or you're in the music or you're in the poetry. You try to say a verse is this many sentences or whatever. But in reality, in the original, it was a sentence. Put that together. The universe is a sentence or a single spoken sentence, a single written sentence, whatever you want to go. But we would say single spoken sentence. So in order to have a universal law or to be in a universe that has laws, things that protect your rights, you have to first know who spoke it. I'm not Minister Tamer, only one. So you got to be in tune with who spoke it. This is why when you go to court, you know what universal law is when you go to court? Right? You put your hand on the Bible, and you got the other hand in the air. Put a hand on, you got one hand here. Right? That hand stays here. You put one hand there. That's universal law. They're using this up. Now they're twisting it and you're not catching it and you're giving up who you are because you don't realize the difference between lawful and legal. You hear what I'm saying? Just because it's lawful doesn't mean it's legal. Just because you can do it legally doesn't mean you should do it lawfully. Just because you can do it legally doesn't mean you should do it lawfully. You can do it, but it doesn't mean it's lawful. You can have as many sexual partners as you want your whole life. Doesn't mean it's lawful. You can cheat on your wife. Doesn't mean it's lawful. You can cheat on your husband. Doesn't mean it's lawful. You can be abusive. Doesn't mean it's lawful. Somebody says, no, you can't be because that's against the law. It's against the law. But there's a lot of people doing these things and getting away with stuff. They read what's legal and they even see how much they can abuse somebody. Heck, there's people that have fetishes where they want to be abused. Doesn't mean it's lawful. Doesn't mean it's something that's going to help you and make you healthy. I'm just trying to get you to see there's a universal law. Who spoke the universe into existence? Stop talking about you're in the universe. We're in tune with the universe, but then you don't believe in who spoke it into existence. Something doesn't make sense. I'm just saying, if you want to use other words, fine. Go into a different culture and stuff like that. But if you're going to be honest about it, right, you can't use those words and then sit up there and tell you don't believe in something. Because if you believe in a universe, then somebody had to speak it into existence. That's what the word universe means. Can you not see the cognitive dissonance? Can you not see the being double-minded? Can you not see why people gaslight you on certain things now rather than be apologetically sound and not actually put the burden of proof where it belongs and have proper etymological discussions? You said thought created everything? Okay, well then we don't believe in a universe. Now maybe it started off in somebody's thought, but the universe is a single spoken sentence. Somebody got to speak it. That's why there are multiverses. Somebody had to speak it into existence though. Right? Like, I can think about my wife, and I'm not coming at you personally. Hopefully you're not taking it that way. I can think about my wife, and I can think about how awesome she is, and how beautiful she is, and how sexy she is, and how intelligent she is, and how divine her spirit is, and how awesome she is at being able to take herbs and make sure that the herbs are used for the healing of the nations, and all these things. I can think it all day, but if I never speak it. See, there's a lot of dangerous thoughts that many people have, but you've never spoken them or you never put them into action. Matter of fact, there's some dangerous thoughts that you have, and you know why they're dangerous? Some of us have dangerous thoughts because we don't actually speak them out. So some of your thoughts are dangerous. See, there's some brothers out there that love their wives, but they come from a place where they're not supposed to say, I love you. And so it's difficult, so they don't ever say it. And so it's dangerous because the thought that has never been spoken It's something that causes dangers. You said you're Moors, sure. Moor, are you talking about you're from Morocco? Are you talking about you're a black Moor? Are you talking about a Moor who was over in Ireland? Are you talking about a Moor who was over in Croatia? Are you talking about the Moors who built the castles in Europe? Are you talking about the Moors who did this? Right? We weren't all the same people, but Moors is a catch-all. So which Moor, which tribe, which nation? But yes, I am a Moor. I recognize that, right? I'm also a non-citizen national, so I don't worry about having to make sure that I bow down to anybody's standards, including I'm not an American. I'm speaking from a private place here, trying to show you how this stuff publicly is affecting you. Once again, that's dealing with law. That's not dealing with what's legal. And see, so before we get there into all these things, we got to first at least break down where we are. We're trying to go to all these different places. We got to figure out what's lawful and legal. If you're going to be a Moor, fine. Are you a Moor on paper? Because if you're not a Moor on paper, do you have a Moorish flag? You know, if you wave a Moorish flag, if you put a Moorish flag on your license plate, if you put a Moorish flag on the front of your house, you know that police officers, a lot of them, they are in, I don't want to use the term Illuminati, they are Masons, right? And as Masons, they have to respect the Moors, which means a lot of times they won't even mess with you. Now, mess around and have some Moorish paperwork, and many of them know what you're saying is real. By the way, there's videos you can watch of people who have been way more boisterous about this to the police officers, cussing them out, and police wouldn't do anything. You know why? Because they know what an actual Moor is, and somebody actually is a Moor by the way that they live, and they actually have separated themselves from the system where they might be in it, but they're not of it. Right? So even with it, you can have a thought in your head, but if you don't begin to speak it, and watch this now, does your life begin to speak it? Because you can have faith, but faith without works is dead. You see how law works? Are you catching? You see, law, this thing is lawful. I'm not talking about what's legal. I'm talking about what is lawful. You hear what I'm saying? I'm not talking about what's illegal. I'm talking about what's lawful. A lot of people are trying to have a legal conversation with those of us who live in law. And so a lot of you are trying to have a public conversation with those who are in the private. In other words, you're trying to have a worldly conversation, a systemic conversation with something that doesn't match the kingdom. See, I am a king. And thank you all for coming on. Thank you for your likes, for your shares, all those things. Thank you for your comments, everything. Appreciate you, right? See, I am a king. Kings don't have the sense of commoners. If you're a king or a queen, you shouldn't carry around the common sense. Are you a commoner or are you royalty? As royalty, you got to recognize that everything that you touch, right, and everywhere that you stand and everybody connected to you, they literally are feeding off of you being in position. Well, we can get into all that. We do courses on that. We talk about Black Soul Dictionary. I already talked about that before. We talk about the DS11. Right now, I'm going to try and stay focused if I can. So maybe we can try to do those things or whatever. You said we have to be tied to a nation as a nationality. You have to, first of all, separate yourself from a nation. If on paper, and if on the way you live, even if on paper, not necessarily, you don't have to separate all the way. But if you live in the public, then guess what? You still belong to a public. Watch this. Even in prayer life, we say this, but this is something that comes from a lawful point of view. Right? Right? These are things that come from, well, just hang in there with me long enough. I promise you, I'm going to say some things that are going to be relevant. Okay? Just hang in there with me long enough. I got to make sure that we're going in the right place. If I keep breaking on too much, then we're not really going to learn much of anything. No offense, right? I'm sorry if I'm not meeting your criteria or meeting it fast enough or whatever, right? You can always contact us too, and just, we have people that know this stuff, people that might be in your area. You might be able to talk to me one-on-one. You might be able to join classes, whatever the case might be, right? But just follow me enough. Follow me a little bit, okay? So we're talking about lawful and legal, right? We're talking about lawful and legal. You got to recognize that if you are still part of the public, then you deserve to be treated like the public, right? If I go to a public store and buy some food, I don't get mad when they tax me. Why? Because I've gone into the system. In their system, they have to pay a tax. That means I got to pay extra so that they can pay their masters. No problem, right? That's the way it works. But if I own my own land and my land is allodial, right? That means that it's mine from the rooter to the tutor, right? For those who know that term, right? Then it's mine, right? Like I don't need to register with any state or anything. If I get a car, why don't you register with the state? Is it lawful for you to register a car with the state? Why do you pay car taxes? You pay car taxes because you register with the state. Why do you pay taxes on your children? Why do you pay taxes on your spouse? Why do you pay taxes on yourself? Why do you pay taxes on those that live under you? Why do you pay taxes? Because you registered them all with the state. This is why they get to tell you, well, we're going to tell you what you need to pay when y'all break up. Because you registered your relationship with the state. You are owned. You are public property. And then sitting up there telling people, I don't have to listen to nobody. Yes, you do. Your whole life is centered around somebody else. If they say jump, you better jump. You don't get to consider if you get to jump because you're not in the private at all. You keep talking about you have this private life, but everything you do is public. You hear that again? Right? Like your life is public. You are so public, but you keep talking about private or keep talking about what your thought process is or your opinion. You don't get to have an opinion because you don't belong to yourself. Now, back to what I was saying real quick, right before we started going many different ways. Thank you, Holy Spirit, for getting me back on track. Look, when you're talking about law, when you pray or when you go, guess what a prayer is? Somebody help me. If y'all been on with us for a while, you might have heard me say this before. What is a prayer? Lawfully speaking. We're talking law today. Somebody help me out. What is a prayer? Well, it depends. Yeah, they might be dead in the eyes of the law, but they still have to be respected. They're dead in the eyes of the law, depending on what type of nation you are, because you're separate from it. Right? But let's keep on going, right? And I want to be dead in the eyes of the law. That makes me private. Don't watch me. Right? Don't watch me. And when I show up, I'm a natural man. By the way, as a natural man or as a human being, human legally actually is defined as being a monster because I'm monster to the system. I rip things apart. So watch this. A prayer is a petition. How you doing, Brother TJ? A prayer is a petition. Lawfully speaking, a prayer is a petition. You hear people say all the time, make your request made known, make your petition made known. What is your petition to the Lord? That's what they'll say. You'll hear them saying during service, right? Prayer is a petition. Lawfully speaking, what is a petition? What is the definition of petition? If I pray or if I'm praying and it's a petition, if I make a petition, what is a petition? Lawfully speaking. See, I need this to be something where we kind of come out of some wild stuff to where we're not thinking correctly, where we can't even do, right? Okay, a prayer, yep. So it is a request or a demand made upon a government based upon your constitutional rights. That is what a petition is. A petition is what? It is a request or a demand made upon a government based upon your constitutional rights. Let me say that again. What is a petition? How you doing, Minister Shante? A petition is a request or a demand made upon your government based upon what? Your constitutional rights. That is what a petition is. So when you pray, a lot of times you're praying about stuff legally, but it's not lawful. It's legal to ask for whatever you want, but you got to ask yourself, according to my constitutional rights, do I have the right to ask for that right now? Is that what you have for me? Is that what actually is going to help the people of Yah? Is that what's going to help my diaspora? Is it natural for me to do so? Right? When you're making your petition to the government, you said UCC 1. What about UCC 1-308? When you're making a petition, when you're signing a contract, right, and you go to the judge to say, I'm coming to make a petition unto you that this person broke contract, do you know enough to say they broke UCC 1-308 or before UCC 1-207? Do you know how to make sure that people aren't coming for you on bills and stuff where they're breaking contract and you give them a negotiable instrument, you give them a payment and you say, I can't pay the full payment. They say, well, we're going to take everything you've been paying on for 12 years away from you. And you say, oh no, UCC 3-603. No, you will not. No, you will not. See, you have to know what a petition is. And if you have the constitutional right, because rights don't, once again, constitutional rights means there has to be law to protect it, because laws do not give rights, laws protect rights. At least make that joke in October. You got to be better than that. Trolls, any trolls on here, just letting you know, like, be at a high standard of trolling, okay? Like, I actually interact with y'all a tiny bit, but it's difficult to deal with the trolls when y'all aren't even on a certain level, okay? Right? So when you make a petition, any petition you make, it can only be based, you're making it to a governing body, and it has to be based off of constitutional rights. When you write a trust out, the judge is just a trustee. Did you know that? If somebody tries to come at you for something in your trust, the judge is just a trustee. All they're going to look at is what the trustor wrote. They're going to look at the trust. The trustor is the person who wrote it. They're going to look at who's the beneficiary of what's going on. And then they, as the trustee, have to obey what's in the trust. Right? But people are talking about, well, what about this and where to go? I'm trying to tell you, we don't comprehend how law works. Do you not know that many judges are not even judges just because they're a priest? That's why they wear a priestly robe. They belong to the legislative branch. You got to be part of certain courts or part of the Supreme Court in order to really be a judge. But you think that every judge is a judge. This is a religious experience you're going into. And they're trying to get you to give up your rights based upon it, whether you agree with this, whether you think this is the white man's, whatever it is. You better learn how this works, because if you learn how to speak like this, that's all. Watch this, right? And I know it's backwards for y'all on TikTok, but all they're doing when you go into a courtroom is they're trying to use this, the law, to be able to get you to bow down to the principles of this and give yourself up. If you know this, then you know this. If you know this, then you know this. I know you don't like it, but that's real. You don't have to like it. I'm not here to tell you what you need to like. I'm telling you what you need to know. Whether you believe in this or agree with this, this is how the courtroom is operating. Why are there three branches? Because Elohim is 3 in 1. Why do you need an affidavit or at least have 2 witnesses? Right? Because if you need agreement between at least 2 witnesses, right? Why does there need to be somebody that we can have that can be the trustee or to be the go-between in between you? Why do we need that? Because first things first, hey, agree with your brother. But if you can't agree with your brother, find somebody that can go ahead and y'all can listen to. They're using the same principles. And you're so busy saying this is the white man's, not realizing, fine, even if you think it's just white man's, then you better realize that they're using it well. You better learn. You better learn. Right? But we're so busy fighting things that we're not aware of, telling people all the stuff that we know better than somebody else, and we don't recognize like what you're in. What system are you in? I just said earlier, right? You said, well, Christ be the judge, that's fine. Do you know how to deal with a judge that's in front of your face and to use Christ and what he says to the judge? Or are you just going to go in there and say, Christ is my judge? And they say, well, lock him up, because he didn't come with any kind of defense. Matter of fact, this right here tells you, right, to make sure that you have a defense. What is it? 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 15. Make sure you have a defense for that which you believe. Make sure that you can tell somebody about the hope, right? Can you defend yourself? Do you have any apologetics? But people will tell you, well, we're not supposed to argue the word. It doesn't say you can't argue the word. Y'all think that the word argument means to fight and yell because that's legal, but that's not lawful. That's not how we conduct ourselves. You said he judges all false governments. That's great, right? Right now, you're living in a false government. If you live in the United States, we went over this earlier. By law, 28 USC 3002, 15A, B, and C. A says what? United States is a corporation. B says what? United States is is a board. And C, United States is publicly traded. It is not a country. What are you doing to make sure that you live by truth now and separate yourself from the world? Be ye in the world, but not of it. Okay, so we can be so heavenly minded that we can't operate on earth. But what's done in heaven is supposed to be done on earth. Isn't that lawful? Talk back to me now, right? What's done in heaven is supposed to be done on earth. Why is it on earth you getting your butt kicked legally, but lawfully you're supposed to have power? He has not given us the spirit of fear. Fear, talking about reverence, respect. He's not told you to respect all that stuff. But you render Caesar's things to Caesar and give Caesar the rest of your stuff. You hear what I'm saying? There's certain things that Caesar gets when I'm in Caesar's presence, but I'm not supposed to render certain things to Caesar. Why is it that Caesar gets more than Yah? Why does Caesar get more of your time than Yah does? Why do you not have a community to make sure that you have more time and y'all feed into each other? I'm just saying, we say this stuff, but we don't want to live it because it's legal to do what Caesar says, but you're not realizing it's not lawful to give him more. There's certain things that you should never give Caesar. We forgot what it is to be a community, right? Let me hit you with something. People talk about reparations. You know what happened with reparations? We didn't get reparations from the president. Y'all know that, right? Okay, well, no problem. Then you keep going ahead and thinking that Yah doesn't want you to make sure that you know the law greater than the scribes and the Pharisees. Yehoshaphat, who people call Jesus or people call him the Messiah, the Christ, he said in Matthew chapter 5, verse 20, the Sermon on the Mount, you should know the law greater than the scribes and the Pharisees. The scribes, they write out the law. The Pharisees are the one that are over y'all. So you better make sure that you know it better than them, because that's part of knowing it better than them, right? The laws of Yah. You see what I'm saying? Like, don't get to a place to where you get finessed. I'm not trying to come at you. I'm just trying to make sure we recognize. Don't get to a place where we're so esoteric, where we're so mystical that we're not practical, right? Right? Like we've forgotten certain things. Watch this? Let's be really practical. Who is supposed to teach your child? It's legal for them to go to school, but by law, who's supposed to teach your child? Oh, y'all want to say, talk back to me now. Don't get mad at me. Don't shoot down the messenger. Don't get so upset. I might be bringing some things. Look, trigger warning. I might be saying some things that trigger some things in your life and make you a little upset. But I want you to see how the system is messed up to get you to get away from this, right? They want you to get away from this so that you'll be stuck in this, right? Or you won't even know how this is operating, right? Who's supposed to train your child lawfully? And they still mean it today, because watch this. If your child is getting an F at school, and if your child isn't doing their homework, will the school get in trouble or will you get in trouble? Come on. Like, work with me now. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm a little fired up. This rising, especially if y'all with us on early rising Bible study session, I was trying to contain myself. I've been up speaking to myself. All right. Right? You hear what I'm saying? Who is supposed to train your child? Did they say send your child to school in the way they should go, so when they grow old, they will not depart from it? Just because it's legal doesn't mean it's lawful. Watch this. The people who are speaking to you from pulpits and never talk about this stuff. Where do you think they go to school? Do you train them? Do you tell them culture? Do you make sure they know what barashat is and the difference between Uranus or Uranus or firmament and what's Hakwaya? Do they know Achabach? Do they know Yachabach Achabach? Do they know Yachava at Yahashbai at Hakodash? Do they know what it is to have Amat and live inside of that? Do they know how to Barak Alacham? Right? Who's supposed to train our children? Where is your language at? Why am I expecting somebody that is trying their best to get me to go outside of natural law, kingdom law, universal law, these certain principles, right? Because we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, origins. Why would I expect them to teach these people that are supposed to speak to you? You hear what I'm saying? Why would I expect a demonic system to teach righteousness? By the way, the word righteousness means right lawful standing. We got a bunch of people who are, and no offense, I'm just trying to look, educational purposes only. Study this stuff. See if what I'm saying makes sense. Don't believe it just because I'm saying it, and don't disbelieve it because I'm the one saying it. Please study this stuff. But I'm tired of hearing people talking about they're ordained, but they don't agree with law. Because how in the world are you going to be ordained with law when you cannot be ordained without carrying ordinance out? And the ordinance is law. No wonder our people are messed up. I'm ordained. I'm ordained Reverend so-and-so. I'm ordained presiding prelate so-and-so. I'm ordained apostle so-and-so. I'm ordained pastor so-and-so. I'm ordained overseer so-and-so. I'm ordained prophet or prophetess so-and-so, right? I'm ordained deacon or deaconess so-and-so. That means you follow law. When you get your ordinance, right? Or when you get your certificate of ordinance, right? When you've been ordained, guess what? The only reason that certificate carries any weight is depending on who you're registered to. When we give out licenses, you're registered to a private organization. When they give out licenses, you are ordained, right? You are registered to the state. Your ministry belongs to the government. It belongs to a country. The state of New York, if you're ordained there, you belong to the state of New York. You can only marry as the state of New York says you can. If you're ordained in a place in Texas, and guess what? You are ordained to the state of Texas. You are only allowed to do what Texas says. If you got that 501c3, guess what? You can get a bunch of money because of it, but guess what? You sold part of what you're supposed to do because you are only going to be allowed to do what the federal government tells you can do. You hear what I'm saying? But you're thinking because it's legal, it's lawful. You hear what I'm saying? In your mind, because it's allowed to happen, it must be legal. In your mind, because they preach it, it must be legal. It's legal to tell people untruths about the Bible, but it's not lawful. Let me walk down your street, son. Right? Let me walk down your street a little bit. Right? I'm with you. I see the question or I see the statement. Let me walk down your street real quick. Why do you think that Moses went down the Nile River? I just want to show you. It's legal what they said, but it's not lawful. Why do you think in your mind that Moses went down the Nile River? Is it lawful? Roll with me now. Why do you think that Moses went down the Nile River? Why were you so excited in Black is King that you saw that little baby, or supposed to be baby in a basket going down? Well, yeah, it's legal to worry about if something's ethical or moral, or say that it doesn't have to work together, but it's not law. Law is always moral. Law is based off of morality. We talked about morality not too long ago, right? Y'all remember? But once again, is it legal? We even prayed about the morality of Yashar. I can't remember which prayer service. But once again, I'm talking about law. See, you will hear something and never check to see if it's lawful. How you doing, Sister Irene? You will hear something and never check it out. Be careful. That's why I say anything that I'm saying, please look it up. That's why I'm giving you some of these. I can't give you receipts for every single thing that I'm saying, but that's why I'm saying, look this up here. Look this up in United States Code. Look this up in UCC. Look this up in Black's Law Dictionary. Look up the legal definition of. Why? Because you need to find out if this is law or if this is legal. And see what they're doing to you with these terms. Well, for us, see, now once again, I'll say this again. I'm talking about culture. And the culture that you come from, you might be talking about law different than I'm talking about law. So this for educational purposes only. Let me educate you on our culture. See, because I'm not going by modern definitions all the time. Matter of fact, I believe that we should use these things. And if we are going to use different things that have happened in different time frames, we should see what it means within that time frame. Right? For us, I can care less. In my culture, we can care less if it's legal, that when I walk down the street, this is what I'm supposed to do. If it's not lawful, I won't do it. And by the way, if you know how law works, then just make sure that you know, because all things that are legal have to bow down to what's lawful. The UCC still has to obey the law. They have stuff in there to try and tell you why it's acceptable to follow a statute and do something that's legal, but it doesn't mean that I have to give up what's lawful to do what's legal. Right? You got to see. So I'm talking about a different mindset. For other people, you're trying to say, well, once again, you're coming from a thought process of somebody else's culture. So, oh, well, this is what we suppose law. No. I know what a universe is. Universe is something that has to be spoken into existence. So in order for to know universal law, I have to know kingdom law. And if I'm going to talk about natural law only comes out of universal law. And if I'm going to talk about something that's got to have substance, substantive law only comes out of natural law. And if I'm going to talk about something that's going to be substantive, I've got to know procedural law, the procedures I'm supposed to follow, and I got to know remedial law. When somebody tries to disobey the law and do something legal and say that it supersedes, what's the remedy so that I can go ahead and be, paid back for what you did? Not just pain and suffering, but if you wasted my time in court, you owe me money. That's remedial law. But you don't know the law enough. And if I'm going to talk about public and private law, it's got to have substantive law. And that's when I finally find out what common law is. By the way, there's only 3 common laws, right? According to Western society, I know common law came from really what's the British and this and that, whatever, in the British Empire, and what England had and lords had in different places. And somebody put it all together in like the 1800s into a manual, right? We just taught on this for those who took class, right? Black's Law Dictionary 1, right? So I know all those things, but common law only breaks down into 3 laws. 3 laws as far as common law is concerned anyway. So when you say common law, this is what you mean. First law is that you should not harm anybody. Don't hurt anybody. Second law is that you should not steal from anybody. Don't take anybody's stuff. Third law is that you should not what? You should not lie to anybody. Everything else is a statute. Everything else is optional. That's how law works. So if you're coming to me from a different perspective and don't even recognize that, but that's what the people who are in charge of the system that you might be trying to defend right now, that's what they go by. But you don't even realize what a statute is versus common law. And those who don't truly comprehend what equity is, how can you talk about law of equity? And if you don't comprehend what maritime law is, how can you talk about admiralty law? And do you know when you're in an admiralty court? Do you know when you're in a common law court? Or do you know when you're dealing with common law? Do you know when you're dealing with law of equity? You need to deal with them differently. Common law is when I'm dealing with what? Common law is when I'm dealing with, hey, did you hurt somebody? Did you lie to somebody? Did you steal from somebody? So when I'm dealing with that, when I'm dealing with something like that, I've got to recognize it's common law. Even so if somebody took money from somebody, that's common law. Now watch this though. If I'm dealing with where I'm trying to figure out the value of something, now we're dealing with law of equity. What's the value of it? What's the worth of it? How much is this actually worth? Now we're getting into equity. Okay, what are the parameters? What are the borders? How are we allowed to trade this and that or whatever? We might be dealing with admiralty law. But if you don't know how law works, how are you going to discover this? How are you going to not keep getting hit upside the head? How are you doing, Sister Austin? But people are arguing what's legal and they don't even know what's lawful. You said they need to be around via survey? When did I say around via survey? It had nothing to do with survey. I legit just broke it down, right? I don't know if that's a genuine question or not, so forgive me if it's genuine and I'm not just following. But no, specifically, what is common law again? 3 things I said, right? What is law of equity? Has to do with what? Status, right? Or what your worth or value is on something. And what are we dealing with as far as maritime law or admiralty law? We're dealing with parameters as far as like who owns what and who's allowed to do this as far as trade. When you go into a courtroom, that's what you're dealing with. You know that you can ask a judge their name, right? You know, you can say, Your Honor, what is your name? When you say that to a judge, now you need to know how this works. It's for educational purposes only. Some of you are going to run with this and not study it. So I have to make sure I say this for educational purposes only because you try to blame me. You're not going to study. You're not going to ask questions. You're not going to actually like go to something where we can actually talk about it, go to an actual class, whether it was with me or somebody else. And by the way, I'm not a guru on this. I'm somebody that knows some of the basics. But you aren't willing to like go through some of the stuff to learn how this works, to learn if money's real, right? Like y'all think money's real, but it has no gold and silver to back it up. It's still a negotiable instrument, but it's a fake negotiable instrument. You think that fiat cash is better than electronic cash, even though electronic cash nowadays is the same value, if not sometimes more valuable than the electronic cash that you have now, which is why you're about to, or the fiat cash, which is why you're about to go in the Fed now and all this other stuff. But you don't recognize the difference. You don't even realize that the reason you go to a bank is because you're flowing in currency. Right? Like you're having a different conversation, not realizing that we're talking about admiralty law. You know what I'm saying? We're having a whole different discussion and you are not willing to talk about the difference. We're not talking about what's legal. Well, which parameters are we talking about? See, okay, if you go like, look up pictures of this. Look for court or courtroom, right? And look up courtroom shaped like a ship. When you see courtroom shaped like a ship, especially if you see the golden fringes around it, they're telling you something about admiralty law. Okay? And I won't go deep into that. I'm just trying to show you because I couldn't go deep because it's obvious that you're not. I mean, I guess you disagree. You have a right to disagree, but you're definitely not comprehending what I'm saying, right? And that's okay, right? And I don't want to think that it's malicious. I'm just trying to say we're having a situation where I can't really discuss it at this point, right? I'm just trying to introduce a subject to you. So if you're saying, "Hey, I need you to break this down as if this is class," you can come to a class, or you can go to somebody else's, right? Or you can look up these things in Black's Law Dictionary, right? Look up the term. See, watch this. If you're going to court, do you know if you're going to court as a natural person or an artificial person? Let's just do that. When you go to court, which person's going to court? If you are on trial, who's on trial? See, we've asked this question before a long time ago. We asked this question in class a lot. Are you a person? Are you a person who's carrying a person? Are you a person and an artificial person at the same time? When you go to court, who's on trial? When you go to court, your artificial person's on trial. Your birth certificate's on trial. You're not on trial. Yep, we can get into the all caps, the straw man. If we were talking about property law, the front, which is a straw man, right? Your fictitious entity is the one on trial. So you carry an artificial person with you everywhere you go. And what happens is you usually sign away the rights of your natural person, right? Or away, and you say, "Hey, listen and do business with my artificial person." That's what you normally do. Right? Watch this. Watch this. Peep game. Peep game. Peep game. Peep game. Okay. When you sign, we've talked about this before. When you sign a check on the dotted line, are you signing on the dotted line? See, people don't comprehend what we're talking about. When you sign on the dotted line, are you signing on, or are you signing on the line on your check? Are you signing on the line? I'm not saying, oh, he's trying to be esoteric. I'm not trying to be esoteric. I'm not trying to give you a homiletical structure to be able to apologetically win an argument. No. Are you signing on the line when you sign your check? Exactly. No, you're not. Right? You're signing on a line. Sometimes it says a sentence and stuff. Usually it's going to say authorized signature. It has next to it MP. You'll find it on a lot of your contracts too that you sign, right? But it'll say MP. That means microprint. That means that you should see what's magnified before you sign on that. You hear what I'm saying? You said they take everything from you. No, I'm saying that they're not going to be able to take certain things or even worry about putting you in jail. And if you're in jail for a night, that's different than being in jail for years and years and years. But but you need to even know. See, that's what I'm saying. We need to even know who we're dealing with. And no offense, Kelsey. You know, I'm fired up a little bit, right? But I'm trying to get you to see, like, when you go into a courtroom and they say, "How do you plead?" You don't plead at all because you're not an animal. By law, animals plead. Human beings don't. You see, so I'm just saying there's a different mindset. That's why we're saying we got to settle this stuff. And some of this stuff, I can't put everything out in just one thing. There's certain things that you're asking, but you got to realize, like, you don't plead. Or even before, if you decide to plead, you have the right to ask questions according to the Sixth Amendment. So you ask questions like, well, Your Honor, is this common law? Is this maritime law? Is this law equity? It's common law? Okay. Is there evidence that I hurt somebody? Is there evidence that I stole from somebody? Is there like, you can ask genuine questions. You don't have to understand anything because you don't stand under anybody. It's a different mindset, right? But back to the check. Your check usually will say authorized signature. Now, how do you sign your name? You've been taught and trained to sign your name what? Capital first letter, lowercase next letters. Then you set last name, capital first letter, lowercase the rest of the letters, right? And you sign on this thing that says authorized signature. According to common law, or the English common law, right, which is what you're still using. According to that, when you sign your document, right, when you sign a thing that says authorized signature, when somebody sees an uppercase first letter and then the rest of it is lowercase, and the uppercase first letter, the rest is lowercase, guess what they're doing? Guess what they're telling you? They're telling you that that is the real version of you. But if you write your name according to common law, if you write your name all caps, if you write your name all caps according to common law, that is your birth certificate. Now watch this. You'll write your uppercase, lowercase name, uppercase, lowercase name on the authorized signature part. Not a line, but in the microprint, it says authorized signature. In the top left-hand corner of the check, what will it say? In the top left-hand corner, what does it say? It has your all caps name. So what you've done is you said legally, not lawfully, but legally, you've given yourself a way to start doing things legally, not lawfully. You said my actual real person has authorized in the bottom right-hand corner that my straw man, all caps, in the top left-hand corner, I've given authority away from my real person to do business with you with my straw man. And the bank, who's all caps too, normally, because they're a fictitious entity too, they're a corporation. A corporation is a person. So you think you're dealing with a banking organization, not realizing that the corporation is a person. So you've signed a contract with a person. Your check is a contract. Matter of fact, if you don't believe me, go look up the history of Marvel comics, I believe. I think there's a lot of them that do it. Or maybe it's DC comics I'm thinking about, where they finessed a bunch of their people out of money. They finessed them out of money when they made their comics. And what they would do is they would pay them like $250, but then they would put on the back of the check when the person would sign, they would also put the contract on the back of the check. So if you want this $250, I'm about to pay you for some of this artwork that you gave me, where you're also signing away your intellectual property. Contract. Microprint. You agreed to it. Look up co-creator of Batman, how he died without any money. Contract. You agreed to it. If you want this little bit of money, this fraction of money, you're going to go ahead and sign over. You need it right now. $250 back then might have been a lot of money, at least for a certain amount of time to get into a couple months. But $250 and y'all making billions. Right? What I'm just trying to tell you is that it's just because it's legal, you think that you're trying to do some legalisms, not realizing what's going on with law. Right? Isn't it in some of the Marvel Universe stuff, if you look it up, there's creators of some of those properties, of people that made some of those things, people who made like Adam Warlock, and people who made Thanos, and people who made up these characters and stuff, and they tried to actually go to the viewing, and they wouldn't allow them in to be able to even see the movie at the viewing. Forget paying them, they played their own way and was like, maybe we'll get to see the movie. They said, no, we're not going to let you in, player. This has nothing to do with you. When we paid you, you signed it over. You agreed. This is why you have to be careful, by the way. If you have somebody call you, this is something that I won't go deep into this. Those of you who take Black Soul Dictionary, you know what I'm talking about. But, right, be careful about giving somebody facts when you're dealing with something, as far as some of these things where they say you owe money. Be careful. You be out here talking about facts with people and just say, instead of saying it's not lawful for me, I'm not going to do it. Somebody says you owe $5,000. You say, no, there's no way I could owe 5,000. Maybe 500. As soon as you did that verbal contract, you say, okay, I know I owe 500, but I don't like what you guys are doing or whatever. I think I owe 250 though, so I'll pay you like 100 right now. I'll give you the other 150, but we're gonna have to talk about this. Too late. You gave them a negotiable instrument. When you gave it to them, it's a contract. Be careful. They call you about your credit, or a creditor calls you up. Your AT&T bill, you don't have it anymore. You told AT&T they wilding. You're not gonna pay them anymore. You done went to Sprint or whoever you with now, and now AT&T they send the creditor. But that's what you think. But the creditor has not been sent by AT&T. The creditor had to buy your debt. So if the creditor calls me and says, hey, AT&T, you still owe them or whatever, I'm here to, make sure that I get from them. The credit, I say, no, thank you, and might hang up, or might just say, no, that's okay. We can do, we'll go ahead and just, exchange this debt. you can go ahead and keep the debt that you bought. Well, what do you mean? Well, AT&T and I had an issue. UCC 1-308 says that if they start acting a fool and they don't do what's right, I have a right to be able to not have to keep paying them for a service. As a matter of fact, I told them it was okay. We had an agreement where we split ways. They said, well, if y'all don't pay us, you're going to cut the service. I said, well, I'm not going to pay you, cut the service. As far as that, we agreed. We touched and agreed. Biblical principle. We straight. We adversaries, but we agreed quickly. Like it's not going to happen. Now you bought the debt, and you're trying to get me to pay for what you paid for. But I already paid everything I needed to. We're done. They're trying to say there's extra stuff because they wanted me to keep on going with this, and I'm not going to pay for service that you didn't give me. UCC 1-308, right? So therefore, since I'm not going to pay for it, let's go ahead and exchange this debt real quick, right? I give you permission to go ahead and hold on to that debt for me. I'm satisfied with it being held on to you. They're satisfied. And by the way, you will be satisfied because the government's going to pay you back anyways for what you bought. So you're not just trying to double dip, you're trying to triple dip because you bought the debt to make money. Then you're going to try to get money off me, and then you're going to get money off the government anyways. How about you just go to the government, get the debt back? Thank you very much. And we'll keep it moving. Right now, but it's legal for them to do that, right? Will they go to jail for doing that? I didn't say should they go to jail, right? But will they go to jail for doing that? Now, somebody will argue that and never look into the law, but you don't know who you're dealing with, right? Not just with me, you don't know who you're dealing with them. Just because it's legal doesn't mean it's lawful. So you go ahead and the debt belongs to you. I'll go ahead and allow the debt to go to you. AT&T doesn't care about this anymore because you already paid them. I don't care about it anymore because I already disagree with them. And I'm happy that you took on the debt because now technically the debt's not on my head. And if you guys continue this, I'm going to just go ahead and call all the people that you're trying to do damage with Equifax and TransUnion and stuff and make sure that I show them the inconsistencies with what you're saying. Because once I do that, they're not only going to cancel off that debt, but they got to wipe all the debt clean. If you're concerned about your credit score. But you got to know what's lawful, not legal. Are you a natural person? Are you dealing with the artificial person? I mean, we got to ask some questions. People don't tell us this stuff, and we assume that what these people are doing, they can just get away with it just because. There's a difference between lawful and legal. Are you lawful or legal today? Everybody always talks about, and see, this is when you got to be careful, biblically speaking, right? You have to be careful because people are trying to get you and I to get into arguments about this stuff and telling us that we're legalese. That's what they tell us now. Now we're in the legalisms. You're illegal. You think everything is about being legal, but Christ died so that we wouldn't have to worry about being legal. Christ, you're absolutely right. Christ died to make sure that we were lawful. You're absolutely right. Sorry about that. I don't want to leave y'all hanging there, but you're absolutely right. I didn't go back to the, see, that's what I was saying. We get to so many places, it's easy for me to get all over the place. Thank you for bringing me back to that. Yeah, when we talk about reparations, right? Reparations, I believe I had started off, and I think I left it here. Correct me if I'm wrong. But reparations did not come from the President of the United States of America. Right? A lot of people don't want to hear that. But reparations did not come from the President of the United States of America. I'm going to say it one more again. Right? Reparations did not come from the United States of America. So Abraham Lincoln did not give you reparations. Why is that important to know? Why do you think that's important to know? It's important to know because you got to stop going to the federal government talking about reparations. And reparations doesn't just go to anybody who's Black. It doesn't just go to you because you're Native. It doesn't go to you just because you're African. By the way, some of these terms I'm even using are not even considered to be real people. They're considered to be fake people. So you might not want to be an African American, or you might not want to be Black or Negro or color. Those are all considered to be artificial people. They're fake. They have no status in Western law. See, it's legal to call yourself African American, but don't forget you weren't African American until the 1980s. And you was black before then. And then before then, you was Negro, right? And before then, you was just an N-word or a slave, right? And during that, you were considered to be property. Still are, technically. Right? But you having the wrong conversation. That's what I'm saying now. Stay with me. Stay with me, right? So reparations wasn't given to us because we were black or because we were slaves even. I mean, it's given to us because we were slaves, but hopefully you're catching what I'm saying. Reparations wasn't given just because you were a slave. Reparations was given to you because you became a freedman. Freedmen have rights. You know why? Because freedmen are a nation. Did you catch that? You catch the difference? Not everything that's lawful is legal. Not everything that's legal is lawful. Freedmen are a nation. So you keep talking about black people or African Americans deserve reparations. Well, how much? Because y'all African Americans only existed from the 80s. Black people only existed. I mean, we were calling ourselves black, but we ain't really started saying it like that till people started saying, say it loud, I'm black and I'm brown. James Brown, who by the way was one of the furthest right people, like we make this assumption that because he could dance like us, right? Or he, matter of fact, he danced better, right? But he danced and set the tone for that. And he was sitting up there, the godfather of rap and doing stuff like that. And he could sing really well, right? But he wasn't doing that from a place of he was trying to protect you. And I'm not a Republican or a Democrat, by the way. So let me make that very clear. I am not a Republican or a Democrat. I do not subscribe to that. I'm not worried about that. So that's not my stance. That's not my concern. That's not what I'm trying to do. Okay. But a freedman, they were nation. Now, this is what happened. General Sherman, he's going on his stuff where he's eradicating Georgia, eradicating Atlanta, tearing it down. And as he's going from place to place, there are slaves, former slaves, well, slaves really still, I guess, that are following him everywhere, are following him and his army everywhere that they go. And they are growing and growing and growing and growing. So General Sherman says, hey, send the wire. Let's send the wire back to the White House. He says, hey, there's all these slaves that have found us. What should I do? Somebody has a bright idea and says, why don't you talk to them? Right? Why don't you have actual conversation with them? He says, okay, makes sense. Sits down, has a conversation with 4 black pastors. I know we always say that, the church don't do nothing, white man, this and blah, blah, whatever. But he has a conversation with 4 black pastors who were chosen to be on behalf of the people. These 4 black pastors, they have a conversation with General Sherman. General Sherman basically starts off by saying, look, what do you guys want? Y'all are following us. What can we do for you? How can we help you? The pastors come together and they go by law. They go by the Bible. They say, look, we're not looking for you to do much for us. We know what's happened with the history of us. We know that it's been detrimental. We're not here to judge this and that anymore. We've forgiven, right? But at the same time, we believe that we're due something. And we believe, and they knew that not all of them were only from Africa. They knew a lot of them were indigenous. So what they said is we want a place to be able to call our own, to be able to teach our own children, to make sure that we worship Elohim the way we want to make sure that we can have finances and stuff for ourselves, and to make sure that we have our own land. General Sherman hears this and goes, there's a lot of our people that don't want that. They want us to control everything, this and that or whatever. And you know what? That's a great mentality to have. Do something on your own. He agrees with them. He says, yeah, that makes sense. Matter of fact, he agrees with it also too, not just out of the kindness of his heart, because later on you will hear the same General Sherman say that he doesn't like us and that we shouldn't be given any kind of status in society later on. But he likes it a lot because also too, it's helping him to destroy the South. He's a Southerner, but he had told the South, if we ever get into a war, I promise y'all don't have the stomach for it, because what's going to happen is going to really mess y'all up, and we should stay united. So he was punishing basically his own Confederacy or his own people as part of the Union to show them like, y'all should have never did this in the first place. And he says, I don't want this to come back. So one of the best ways to make sure that this doesn't come back is what? One of the best ways to make sure that this doesn't come back into being is what? I need to ensure that the South or the Confederacy cannot rise again. So he says, not only will we give you all land and leave you all alone, we will allow you to be called freedmen. You are a nation now. And not only by that, freedmen, he said what? He said, I will give you 40 acres and a mule, right? And if you guys start to, as the slaves, make more money, you will totally destroy what the Confederates stood for, even though the North was fighting for capitalism with slavery at the bottom. So you must recognize we think it's capitalism versus slavery or the North versus South. The slave owners didn't care about capitalism. They were like, well, capitalism is okay, I guess, on the bottom, but we don't need capitalism because we own slaves, right? Those who were capitalists in the North were saying, we want capitalism, but we'll have slaves on the bottom. This is why the 13th Amendment never got rid of slavery, right? The 13th Amendment did what? The 13th Amendment never got rid of slavery. The 13th Amendment actually allowed you to be enslaved once you were arrested, or some would say once you are not indicted, but once you are found guilty. But really, technically, it's once you are arrested that now you can be treated as a slave. Right. So General Sherman, right, is somebody who's like, I'm trying to win this war, trying to beat the brakes off the Confederacy, and putting the people that used to be slaves above them is a pretty great way to do it. And freedmen got 40 acres and a mule. Right. So why is it that one of the reasons it's hard to give you reparations because you're not a nation? Do I believe we deserve reparations? Sure. I think it's better to have inward reparations and to do the same stuff that everybody else does. I believe that it's okay for people to gentrify. I think that a Chinese neighborhood should look like it's China. I think that a Jamaican neighborhood should look like Jamaica. I think that if you go to Miami and you see certain places should look like Little Havana. Right? Am I saying it right? I'm having a brain moment. Right? I believe that if you go to an Italian neighborhood, it should look like Little Italy. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, right? And so, right, so they did those things. Now, here's what happens that a lot of people miss, where they messed you up, right? Where they messed you up was that you were freedmen. Guess what they started doing? They started, remember Abraham Lincoln is killed. He was trying to make those greenbacks, right? And they didn't like that. They killed him off. And then they put his vice presidents put in power. His vice president was actually somebody who supported the Confederacy, even though he never really went over to them. Andrew Johnson. Andrew Johnson becomes the president, and Andrew Johnson starts allowing all the people from the South that were never supposed to have power again and were supposed to be punished for basically separating themselves from the Union, being traitors, right? He allows them to come back into the same positions and go through the same stuff and do the same things and be part of the same items and stuff like that, and have this and all the stuff in Congress that they did before. And what do these people in the South do? They start working towards things with some people in the North, right? They use capitalism now, but also chattel slavery is still on the bottom. 13th Amendment is in place. 14th Amendment says what? 14th Amendment says if you were born in the U.S. or U.S. territory, we'll say that you're, well, in the United States of America, we'll say that you are, or the United States even, right? 14th Amendment is when the lowercase c starts popping up. So before that, uppercase c, because everybody was a citizen with that uppercase c. Once you get to the 14th Amendment, it says lowercase c. You are not a real citizen, or you're not a sovereign, or you can't be private, but you all belong to us. They're using lawful language, right? So now that we get up to the 13th Amendment and the 14th Amendment, we see that things are changing. We had something called a Freedmen Bank. The Freedmen Bank was something that Frederick Douglass took on. And we were making so much money. It's like a Tulsa, Oklahoma thing before Tulsa. We were making so much money that people were afraid that we as a nation would supersede anything that the nation of the United States was going to be able to do. So what do? They began to challenged the Freedmen Bank and put on a bunch of restrictions to the point to where Frederick Douglass finally taps out. He was rich and he was putting his own money to keep it up, but he couldn't keep it up. So finally he had to tap out, take care of him and his family, and not have and get to a place he couldn't even leave anything for his children. So he backs all the way out. Right? How you doing, Sister Blossom? How you doing? I'm sorry, Khalil, how you doing? So he backs all the way out. He says, look, okay, fine, I can't I can't do this or whatever. Freedmen's Bank goes down, and they come up with the 14th Amendment that says, if you were born in our territory, so they start then taking away what they promised, the 40 acres and a mule, and they start saying, this is American territory, and this is American territory, and this is America's, and this is our land, and this is our land. And so to the point to where now people who are freedmen begin to be born on their land. And before you know it, every freedman gives birth to somebody who's born on United States soil. Because remember, the original definition of an American is a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas. Right? So when you have this conversation that pops up, right, you're having something where you're not even recognizing what happened, but the 14th Amendment now, it affects everybody, by the way. So it's not only about black and white. You got to know about that, right? Some people assume that that's what I'm talking about because you're so into assumptions, you don't even hear the words that I'm speaking, right? But here you go now, right? Here you go now, where you got to get to a place where you recognize what's really going on, right? How you doing, Hebrew enrichment? So, and how you doing? Is it Countess? If I Countess Morningstar. So you have these people who had opportunity to have land, and it was taken from them, and it was said if you were born here, 14th Amendment, then you're a U.S. citizen and no longer a non-citizen national, or in their case, freedman. So if you become a non-citizen national, DS-11 form, passport change, and then begin to change your life where you're not dealing with stuff that come with benefits or privileges, then you have certain rights that are separate. And they have to be protected by the same law because the Constitution protects both the private citizen, the first 13 amendments, and even the public citizen. But once again, I'm talking about law versus legal. If it's lawful or is it legal? People don't know this is law. They don't know why these things are on the books. And you think I'm talking crazy. For example, let's do something real quick. Show you how much this is. Is Iraq a better place now than what it was when Saddam Hussein was in power? Ooh, I'm really gonna hurt some feelings on that. But we got to be honest with you. Let's have honest dialogue. Is Iraq a better place to live in now than it was before we came up in that peace? Because we were gonna get rid of weapons of mass destruction. That was supposed to be the goal. Question for you. When did Iraq start going down? Did it start going down in 2003? Is Afghanistan, is the United States of America better? I mean, I'm just being honest, right? That depends on what your theology is or what your mindset is or what you subscribe to as far as Republican versus Democrat or if you believe that the natives, how they live was okay or whatever, right? But we can go through all that. Yeah, but I just want to focus on Iraq real quick, right? Is Iraq better than when you found it? And when did it start going down? See, this is simple. We can be honest. Let's keep this a buck, right? You can read people who work for the United States tell you when this started happening. They wrote it out. The people who helped to make sure it was defeated, they wrote honest assessment, believe it or not. Iraq was considered to be something that had everything the Western world did. They had hospitals, right? It was under Saddam Hussein. I'm not saying Saddam was perfect by any stretch of the imagination, right? But they had hospitals, they had schools, they had water, they didn't have disease problem and all that, right? they weren't in utter object poverty. You said when Saddam was kidnapped, everything was right. That's why Colin Powell told him, if you break it, you bought it. He said that to the first Bush. The second Bush, he said the same thing, and then the second Bush tricked him, right? Baby Bush tricked Colin Powell. And because Colin Powell came out at first and told y'all publicly, there is no evidence that they have any weapons of mass destruction. And then months later, came out and told y'all, we got to make sure that we get this. And then he didn't show up for the second run, right? When George Bush got voted in the second time, Colin Powell wasn't there to get at the Condi, right? Why was Colin Powell out? Because you lied to me. He wrote it in his book. He said, y'all lied to me. He said, I didn't believe they were weapons of mass destruction. Then they lied to me. I went out in front of the American public, and now I feel foolish. I feel stupid. I feel dumb. They had that woman that was I can't remember her name. She was over the she was trying to position the United Nations, and she comes on. Remember the guy John something of the Daily Show, the one that when everybody really right, the one that was right before Trevor Noah, and he told her to her face. He was like, I think he said this on it's on wax. You can go look it up. He said to her, well, I think you've done one of the worst things that could ever happen to anybody in world history, especially American history. But you seem like a lovely woman. And everybody laughed. Jon Stewart, thank you. Everybody laughed, but he was giving you game. He was like, yo, like she's doing, like y'all about to do something that's crazy. They want you to believe, and they're about to wipe out a bunch of people. You have more homeless than any of that. And it started in 1990. Now, you know why a lot of this stuff happened in 1990? Because America committed war crimes. When you go to war, there are certain laws and guidelines you're supposed to follow. I know some of y'all say win by any means necessary, right? I've been in the military. I get that mindset. I've been asked to do things that are questionable, and sometimes I've said no, right? But I know people go, well, you don't know what it is to defend the country. I was somebody who was actually serving during September 11th and had to go certain places, and during 2003 and had to go certain places, have medals and stuff like that and all that. So I don't care about them as much, but if that's what you need to listen to me, I promise you I got the experience, okay? Now that that's being said though, right? Now that that's being said, the reason why stuff went down and why Iraq started looking bad starting in the 90s, in 1990s, because when you had them go into Iraq, they didn't go into Iraq, they were going to go into Iraq, but they started doing stuff that was illegal. Like, America was spending $1 billion a year at one point. And this is, wow, time flies, 30 something years ago, 32 years ago, or 33 years ago, excuse me. But they were spending $1 billion a year to make sure that there was a no-fly zone over Iraq. Right? You know this, right? They were spending more money to make sure that Iraq couldn't go and do certain things. And they were bombing, right? You're supposed to be dealing with Kuwait, but they started bombing the Iraqi electrical grid. They destroyed any kind of electricity they had. So anything that electricity was used for, and how much, like right now, let's just keep it above. If the electricity went out in your neighborhood right now for a week, what would start happening? See, because some of y'all don't even like your water being heated up. A lot of your water's done, right? So it'll be a certain temperature, and you won't be able to get some of the stuff as far as disease and things that need to flow, right? Some of your water goes on and off because there's electronics that tell it to go on and off. Okay, I'm not sure what word I said, Sister Nadine, but I'll try to be more careful, right? I'm not sure what right? But your water is based off an electrical grid. Right? Some of you don't get up unless you're right. Some of us, we can't really talk nowadays without phones that aren't plugged in to the landlines. We don't have landlines. Right? So, but America did this. That's a war crime, right? All right, be safe out there, Minister Samela. Right? That is a war crime. You said if it was a lie, why was Iraq destroyed? Iraq was destroyed. I'm trying to tell you, it was destroyed in the 90s. But if you're talking about why did we go into Iraq? By the way, I know people. See, watch this. In 2003, when they went in there, I know Marines who went in there and were playing stuff like bombs over Baghdad. This wasn't any, you know what I'm saying? This wasn't a righteous venture. I know people that shot up little children, and now today they have PTSD. It's not what you think it is, right? I had to make decisions if I was going to shoot a child or not. It's not as simple as like, oh, it was the right thing to do. Mm-mm. It's not right. I've never had this experience personally, but I know people, and there's people you can listen to interviews where they'll look somebody in the eye and have to kill them, stabbing them or shooting them, or even choking them out, and they'll watch them breathe their last breath as the person's looking them in the eye. And they say something happens to you where you realize that whether they agree with me or not, that person thinks they're right too. And that person's family not going to see him. And I'm the one responsible for that, no matter how righteous you might make it seem. So war is not always a righteous thing. I just want you to know there are righteous causes to fight for. I just want you to know we can't disqualify stuff because it's righteous, but we can go deeper into it. Like, for example, Obama, because I don't want to make this just right versus left, and some people think I'm doing conservatives versus Democrat. I don't care about that. They're two wings of the same bird, right? Obama, he was out there using drones and told y'all he was blowing up warehouses, but then people had to bring it to y'all attention. They were like, no, they blowing up women and children. And they're making sure people can't eat. And they're poisoning water supplies. Okay, well, if that's your thing where you feel like Allah has to be there, Allah is something that comes out of Allaham because Isaac and Ishmael are brothers. So if you're Ishmael, you'd be my brother anyways. But if you've decided that you need to go ahead and not listen to me and not have brotherhood and not have unity, then that's fine, right? But I'm not dealing with that right now. No offense. It doesn't help anything. Right? It doesn't help us as diaspora. And they're not killing you because you're Muslim. They're not killing you because you're Christian. They're not killing you because you're an Israelite. They're not killing you because you're African. They're not killing you because you're Negro. They're not killing you because they're killing you because you're Black. So if that's the mindset that you have, then we got to listen to what, well, I don't know how you feel about Minister Malcolm Shabazz, but, or Malcolm X, but he's somebody who, at least I would believe, carries very similar belief structure towards you. And he spoke that to us. And that's something that we should probably take into account. Right? I think even Muhammad would want us to make sure that we treat one another with respect. Peace be upon him. So hear what I'm saying, right? Barack Obama, you sitting up there going through all this stuff, but he was out there, but because what? Because he's Black, it's okay. Or because he's a Democrat, it's okay. And he was messing with these little babies. He was offing these little babies and these mothers, and people had to call him out on it. But see, we don't want to be honest about it. Watch this. Ronald Reagan went into Grenada. What was going on in Grenada? What was going on in Grenada? See, we don't want to be honest. None of these presidents. See, watch this. You have it in your mind because you don't know what an oath is. You think that the president's oath of office, by the way, look up the legal definition of oath. An oath, we're talking about today, lawful or legal. An oath, by definition, is a promise to a God or a promise to a deity. Thank you, Renee. Appreciate you. And how you doing? Is it Taiko or Taiko? I'm not sure. Dojo Baki or Bachi? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that at all. Right? So the president's oath goes like this. It goes similar to what I had to have the oath, and it goes similar to what the governor does, or what whomever does if you work for the government. I so and so, right, swear or promise to support and defend the Constitution of the United States as a corporation against all enemies that are what? Both foreign and domestic. The president's number one responsibility is not to take care of you. It is to do what? What is the president's number one responsibility? See, we're having arguments about stuff that's not for us. You're arguing something that's not for you. You're arguing for somebody who doesn't care if you're unified. Matter of fact, if you became unified, you wouldn't listen to this. What is the president's number one responsibility? To defend and support and defend the Constitution, close, right? That's what he's swearing to. But what is ultimately his number one responsibility? I'll give you a hint. Has the word preserve in it. What is his number one responsibility? Has the word preserve in it. His number one responsibility is to preserve the union. That's the number one responsibility of a president. Against all enemies, to him preserving the union that are both foreign and domestic. Now, we already showed you earlier, 28 U.S.C. 3002-15 subsection A tells you the United States is a corporation. He is the president of the corporation because 28 U.S.C. 3002-15 subsection B says that the United States is also a board. So he's the president of the board, and then there's a vice president, and there's secretary, and there's treasurers, and all this, right? So now his responsibility is to make sure that he takes care of the corporation. But all corporations have an owner, right? All corporations have an owner. Roll with me a little bit. All of these corporations have an owner. So the president works for the owner. Now, who owns the presidency? You see, like we don't comprehend lawful and legal. Who owns the presidency? The people who can afford to put the president in there in the first place. The people who have the most stock. That's why 28 USC 300215 subsection C says that this is publicly traded. The people who have the most capital are the ones who are in charge when it comes to capitalism, right? You have this false thing in your mind, false image that all the money that they're making is raised by people like you and I who give and sow into somebody so that they can run for president, right? But the real lobbyist is the corporation who can say, shoot, I'll pay you 50 billion. Just make sure when you get in there, whatever I stand for, that's what you're going to make come first. That's the real owner of the corporation. We're having a bad conversation. You're talking about this stuff. We're not in the right mindset. The real owner of the corporation is different than that. You said that's why you don't have kings. The people who own the corporation are the kings. Watch this. And no offense to you, right? I'm just fired up. Okay. Watch this. Watch this. Praise God. Right? The president is a false king. You look at the president and you never look at the power behind the throne. The word president, by definition, the word president, emperor, king, and queen all are the same. Right? Also, too, if you look up, we already showed you that the United States is not a country, it's a corporation. Right? You must recognize, too, that it's on the law books that if Congress, who's part of the board, right? If Congress starts putting together laws, you know that the lobbyists have to be allowed at the conversation. You know that, right? By law, the lobbyist has to be allowed to be sitting there. Right? Like they can't make a law in Congress and the lobbyists don't get to say anything. Every president is owned. He is a fake version of a king. But also, too, you do not live in a democracy. This is the other part that you must comprehend. Now, technically, you can say you do because the word democracy breaks down to demo, which is a little bit, a village, and a few people. And then cracy means government. So democracy is literally something that says that you have a few people that live together in a village who give you a little bit of information and they rule you by it. But here's the thing. Once again, what did I say? A petition, you don't make your petitions well. Why? What is the definition of a petition again, real quick? A petition is a request or demand made upon a government based off of your constitutional right. Now, why is that important? Because you're making petitions to a government that you don't even know how it works. Because your government is not a democracy because the word democracy does not even show up in your constitution. Go ahead. Look for it. I bet you won't find it. You hear what I'm saying? How you doing, short circuit? Hear what I'm saying? You will not find democracy. Matter of fact, I have not read all 50 state constitutions. I've read some, but from what I've been told is people who've read all of them, they will tell you that they can't find democracy in your state constitution. Remember, by definition, the state is a nation. 50 nations make up this, or have come together and have agreed to allow the federal government to be able to give them advice or to advise them or even protect them from certain things or whatever. And so they all give into this pot and help the federal government to exist. But they don't have to follow everything the federal government says. Why? Because there's only 3 common laws. Everything else is a statute. We talked about that earlier. Yeah, I bet you, right? I bet. Right? You won't find it. So if the word democracy, matter of fact, the 4th president, or at least if you go by George Washington being the first, technically George Washington's not the first president, but if you go by Madison got mad with everybody and said, y'all need to stop telling these people this is a democracy because they'll begin to believe that we function that way. And sure enough, he was right. I'll give credit where credit due. He didn't like us. He didn't like you. He didn't like women, but he was honest. He was like, this isn't going to work the way it's supposed to if you keep telling them that they have rights and everything. They think that they're supposed to vote, right? Like you guys think that everybody's always been allowed to vote. When George Washington was voted in, only 6% were allowed to vote for him. And out of the 6%, even a bunch of them didn't vote for him. So even if you go to, and by the way, that's why I said there's presidents before him, right? 1776 to 1789. There's a huge gap in there that nobody talks about. Who do you think was president? George Washington was the commander in chief. Commander in chief. Now you think of it as the president because eventually he became the president, but he was the first commander in chief of the United States. Commander in chief is a English term or a British term, in which whoever was in charge of all the armies in whatever country or whatever colony they were in, whoever was in control of all the armies, he was the commander in chief. So George Washington becomes the first commander in chief of the United States, then becomes the president, which is why you call every president by tradition the commander in chief. But problem is that the commander in chief, the president, he can't even go to war without permission, right? He still has somebody he got to be owned by. He still has to make sure other people get to tell him whether he can do this or do that. So you have it in your mind that everybody got to vote in this and that. Everybody doesn't get to vote. And they don't even care. That's why they made up the Electoral College. The Electoral College is literally created. Thomas Jefferson said it and others said it. We made the Electoral College so just in case stuff doesn't go the way that we think it should, and people try to vote somebody in that shouldn't be voted in, we have people to make sure that we get stuff right back on track. But you think you're in a democracy. But you know how I can disprove that? Really easy. Because this is something that y'all say all the time, right? You were taught to say this when you were children. Some of you still get mad. Some of you are mad at Colin Kaepernick because you don't comprehend what's going on, right? If you realize what I was saying, you wouldn't have been mad at Cap when he took a knee. You wouldn't have been mad at the NFL owners when they decided to take a knee against Trump and all that stuff. You wouldn't be mad when people try to use the flag for stuff that they shouldn't use it for. You ready? You ready? Okay, here we go. You ready? Watch this. Say the Pledge of Allegiance. Just say the Pledge of Allegiance. Many of us in here know it. If you're from another country, you might not. All right. But say your Pledge of Allegiance for the United States of America. You probably know it even if you're not from America, for real. You won't find now that you're saying it, right? You won't find the word democracy in there, but you will find another word in there. Yep. You'll find another word. That word is republic. I don't know if something went on or not, by the way, Henry. I'm sorry. All right. Right? What does your Pledge of Allegiance say? Because it's not mine, because I'm a non-citizen national. And I never said it even when I was younger anyway. I started getting in trouble because I wouldn't say it. Right? Not because of even all the Republican versus Democrat. It's just I believe that we're supposed to believe in Yah. And if we're not even allowed to speak on his name in high school, I was like, in junior high too, I was like, what's the point of saying it? That was where my mind was. Just like, we can't even pray to him, but y'all want me to pledge allegiance, and then it says one nation under God. I was like, what's the point of that? So I started getting in trouble. I started standing up for it out of respect because my parents, were like, please just say it for respect, get out of high school. Like, please don't get kicked out of school. So eventually I said it. But yeah, I never really agreed with that. But anyways, this is what your Pledge of Allegiance says, right? And I got to even remember because I don't say it anymore. You say you pledge allegiance to the flag, the word flag being standard, right? What is a standard bearer? When you see people and they come out and they're marching and they do the high step and then they slowly march and stuff like that, right? What is the standard? It's a flag. So you pledge allegiance to the flag, the standard. You understand it. You're under the standard. This is how language works. You're talking about lawful versus legal. We don't know the language. You pledge allegiance to the flag, the standard of the United States of America, which, by the way, are 50 countries, 50 states that come together. So it's different than the United States Corporation, right? But there's a corporation that's over these states. So you got to be careful. The United States of America and what? And to the republic for which it stands. So I stand under what it stands for. And it is a republic. It is not a democracy. Once again, check it for yourself. You will not find the word democracy in your constitution. You are not a democracy. You are a republic. Republics, by the way, operate differently. than what you might think. Because yes, you can be a Republic of Greece, a Republic of Rome, and not have a king, but also you can be a republic, right, and have an emperor. Right? Emperor still had a senate. You see what I'm saying? Like we don't want to look at these words correct. Emperor still has a senate. Just because you got a senate, just because you have a House of Representatives, just because you have Congress, just because you have a judicial branch doesn't mean you're not in a republic. So you pledge allegiance. Your children do this all the time, by the way. That's why you got to be careful. You said there's not a requirement to stand to put your hand over your heart for the Pledge of Allegiance. Well, technically there's not, but people get in trouble in school. I can tell you I did. And I know there's a lot of students that do, right? And there's a lot of people who play sports that do, right? We always talk about only Colin Kaepernick. Don't forget about Craig Hodges. And don't forget about these are names that you might not even remember anymore. Craig Hodges wasn't necessarily a star either. And thank you for the love, appreciate you. But don't forget about Mahmoud Abdul-Aruf. Y'all might know him as Chris Jackson. He was a Steph Curry before Steph Curry. Eating them up still comes on the court from time to time, eating people up. And what is he, his 50s now? 40s, 50s, late 40s, 50s? He was Steph Curry before Steph Curry. Y'all remember him? Played with Shaq at LSU. He just dropped off the planet. Some of y'all don't even know what I'm talking about. Go look up Mahmoud Abdul-Aruf or look up Chris Jackson, Denver Nuggets. Go look him up. He decided one day that he didn't believe in what was happening to his people, his diaspora. And so he said he wasn't going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Supposedly they said they were going to work with him and stuff, and he didn't have to either come out during it or something like that. But then all of a sudden the bad press came. And so in capitalism, the people who are in charge of the corporations, they get paid by all the advertisement, right? So those advertisers were like, hey, we don't like that. We don't like this. Get rid of him. And next thing you know, he can't get hired by anybody. Somebody who's could have been one of the greatest players to ever play. And we would have been looking at Steph Curry kind of like, and even though Kobe Bryant's great, don't get me wrong, but why do people say Kobe Bryant's not one of the greatest? You say, well, we've seen that before. Even if you feel Kobe Bryant's more skilled, you say, well, we've seen that before. That's Michael Jordan. But that's what Steph Curry is to Chris Jackson. And you don't even know his name. Why? Because the corporation will take you out with the quickness. With the quickness, right? Take you out. And if you don't pay attention to your own diaspora, you won't even think about him. Yeah, your grandmother wrote a note to the school teaching, no pledge, yeah. Because it's not something that they'll say you don't have to stand for it. But if you don't stand for it, why? And, oh, you know what? That's great. You know what? Let's keep on going. See, because if you don't stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, why is it that the schools don't like it when you don't stand? Talk back to me. This is something that I realized when I was younger, or well, when I was in my 20s. And I look back and I was like, I can see why they didn't want me to just sit down during the national anthem. If you don't stand for the national anthem, what's going to happen? You're not conforming to a norm, sure. I'm going to look for something else, though. How you doing, Sister Wendy? Sorry for not saying hello earlier. How you doing, Hidden? Sign of disrespect? Okay. I'm looking for something else. Sitting is a distraction. We're getting closer. Yes, we're almost there, right? You're not standing for their standard. You're supposedly rejecting it. Yeah, but somebody said something. They said that it's a distraction. If it's a distraction, there's something else that's going to happen with that distraction. You ready? Right? There's something else that's going to happen. If you don't have to stand for the anthem, then why do I have to stand for it? Did you catch that? Wait a minute. If you don't stand for the standard of the republic, then why should I? Somebody put rebellion in there. See, that's when rebellion happens. Rebellion happens when somebody says, wait a minute. If they're doing it different and it seems to work better for them, and they're telling me that they want me to do the same thing, but you want me to be jacked up, why should I not go ahead and rise up with them. This is why the national anthem is such a big deal. Hear what I'm saying, right? It's because the standard. I pledge allegiance, or you pledge allegiance, or those of you who do pledge allegiance to the flag. That's what you understand. You stand under the standard of the United States of America and to the republic, the kingdom for which it stands. You will stand up because you're supposed to be under the standard. And as the flag waves, you will support it. You will support it. You will support it. But you will make sure that everybody knows that you appreciate that standard. The second that you say you will not is the second that everything falls apart. Do you not find it strange? It is the first thing that they want you to do. You were supposed to start every day. They say you can't necessarily pray like that in school. They say that actually it's supposed to be legal for you to carry your Bible around, but they don't even want you doing that, right? But they don't want you to pray in school, but you better stand up for the national anthem if it plays. You better stand up for the pledge of allegiance if it's being spoken. You better be in allegiance with this. Oh, this is a different game. See, you got to know the language. Once again, is it lawful or is it legal? A lot of people keep talking to me about stuff that's legal, but I'm not talking about what's legal. I'm talking about law. That's why it's problematic when you don't stand up. One of the reasons I keep beating all the time, I'm like, man, you know what? I didn't take my son to this, and I didn't take my son to this, and I'm going to take him to the sports thing this year. I'm going to take him to the sports thing this year, and I keep missing it. But one of the things that I really like kind of have in me is I don't want to go. Like if I go something, I'm probably going to go to it, and I'm probably going to sit there, and I'm probably going to during what's happening. So I'm probably going to sit there, and guess what I'm going to do? Like I'm going to be sitting there being like, everybody's going to be looking at us. I'm going to deal with people and people sneering and people saying little comments and people looking at my son and I if I take him to the game because we're not going to stand. Right. So like there's certain things I don't even want to do anymore. And this is something that we should be okay with. Sometimes I just don't like I won't be part of the system because I'm not going to conform. And sometimes dealing with everybody telling me why I can't conform, it's okay, I'll stand. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be bold. Sometimes I still go, but I just don't want to deal with everybody looking at me a certain way. I'm a veteran. I fought before somebody hits me with that. I fought. And still, as wild as it sounds, you might call it cognitive dissonance. If somebody asked me to do a funeral for a veteran, still to this day. No, still to this day. Right? Respect. Somebody dies, respect. Still respect you, right? It's just not something that I adhere to. I don't bow down to it anymore. Right? I respect it. You were willing to die. You put your blood in the soil for something you believe. Hey, I respect it. I'm not here trying to disrespect. I'm trying to tell you that I can respect the person, but disrespect the thing that the person might stand for. Yeah, exactly. Right. Veterans see this stuff from a different perspective that people don't want to talk about. I'm not saying every veteran agrees with me. I'm just telling you, talk to some veterans that have this, we're talking the same language and talk to them. See if they don't start telling you some of the same stuff. You pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. It says that you're one nation. Question though, how can you be a nation if you're not a people? Still got it? Yeah, I try. I used to do that. I used to do gate guard duty for a while at one point. So every rising. And I was trying to make sure because I had gate guard duty where we didn't just deal with one 4-star or one 3-star that might come in. I was in certain places to where it was like everything was shut down, always national security. We had prisoners that people weren't supposed to know even existed. Right. So I was always dealing with people from different countries. We had 4 stars, 5 stars from all over the world. So I always had to be ready. I was getting invited over their homes to do stuff and serve them in different ways at their homes. So yeah. But anyways, right. So I'm just saying, so right, and then we get to this place and it says one nation. Before I get under God, it says you will pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation. But how can you be part of a nation if you're not considered to be a people? let's talk. Let's have honest conversation. Let's have some dialogue. How can I be part of a nation and I'm not even part of a people? This is why I told you a state is a nation. The word people means nation. The people of Illinois, the people of Montana, the people of Arizona against, the people of Texas against, the people of Vermont against. It's a people. It's a nation. You didn't know that because they don't teach you this. Once again, they don't want you to realize whether you believe in it or not, if they're giving you law, all they're doing is giving you this. If they're giving you Bible, all they're doing is giving you this. Whether you believe in it or not, you better learn it. Because that's what they're using to try and manipulate and get you to sign up for stuff that's not even for you or for your family or for your people. But how do you identify as a people and you're not even a nation? Somebody says, what is he talking about? We're all citizens of the United States of America. If you are a public citizen, if you're going off your birth certificate, especially, you must recognize that you are not a public citizen. You are not a private person. You are not a natural person. You are an artificial person. You are a straw man. You are in property law, because that's what they consider to be property. You are a front. If I'm going to buy some property, if I was going to buy some property and I put it under a trust and not my name, they would call that a front, because technically they know I own it, but they can't say I own it because I put a front on. I'm fronting on you. I'm gonna put my trust in charge of it so that you can't come at me, even though I'm the one who's ultimately doing it, because it's my trust. It's a front. It's a straw man. That's property law. Look it up for yourself. Go to whichever law dictionary or law school you want, ask around. That's basic, right? So you are a front. Your all caps you is a front. You keep saying, this is what I believe, but this is what they're not dealing with you. They're dealing with an artificial version of you. Once again, what is an African American? What is that? Where is that? Let's deal with this. What is an American? You know, there's two definitions of an American. The original definition of an American is a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas. The second American came when they decided that they were going to fight against their own people. See, because they are English, they are British, and they fought against their own people. They had a civil war. I know you want to call it a revolutionary war. That's what they want you to believe. It was a civil war. It was their own people fighting against each other. And when they were able to get some of the stuff, right, or before they were, when they got ready to fight, they threw some tea over a boat. And what they did was they took off the stuff of all the stuff off of the people that they had offed, right? All the natives that they had messed with and scalped and done stuff to. They took their stuff and they put it on them. And they painted their faces black. And then they put what they thought was native paint on. And they did stuff that was crazy and sacrilegious, like do woo 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 and stuff like that. And they said that they were Americans now. That's a false version of an American. Because this, according to their standard, they said that an American is a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas. How do you put on blackface and then say that you're a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas? I'm just saying, we don't think about these things. We don't care enough to think about these things. We aren't trying to look to see if there's any righteousness in what we're being taught. We just go, they said it to me in school. But that's why I said earlier, whose responsibility is it to teach your child? It's not the child's responsibility, it's yours. It's not their responsibility to teach you. It's your responsibility to teach you. If mom and dad weren't there, I'm sorry for you, but that's why we have people who are trying to come out. Listen to these teachers, see what they're saying. If they're saying the correct thing, go look for it where they're telling you. When you find that they have receipts correct, when you check the receipt and you find that that code on there is correct, then make sure you start studying it and living it every day. It is not somebody else's responsibility to give you reparations. You better build yourself up. I'm not saying that you don't deserve it. I'm saying you're not going to get it that way. Build yourself up. Be mad at me all day. Hear what I'm saying, though. Be mad, but be mad at exactly what I'm saying if you're going to be mad, right? And be mad not at the messenger, be mad at the person who didn't give you the game in the first place or started playing games with you instead of giving you the truth in the first place. So be angry, but don't sin, right? So be angry, but don't put your anger at the wrong thing or the wrong person or the wrong, somebody's just trying to tell you what it is. And you might not know this. And you need to be able to realize what's going on, right? They have literally messed with you to the point to where you don't know who you are. You are the American. How do they have the right to tell you that you need to be registered with them in order to be who you are in the first place? You said California is giving reparations? Okay, fine. So they're giving how much money to people? Is it going to be the billions that you're owed? Right? Is it going to be 40 acres and a mule for everybody? Is it going to be actual real gold or silver? Because money's not backed up by gold or silver. They're about to give you the Fed Now app, which means that a lot of people who get it aren't even going to be able to use it in a couple of years. Are they going to give you a space and say, this is what belongs to you? Because that's what reparations, that's what was agreed upon. Hear what I'm saying? And I'm not saying, look, fine, if you need to get a piece of it, please get a piece of it and do what you need to do and actually help your community. Right? If that's what you're going to do, help your community. Right? But see, you got to recognize you're not even considered to be a people. A nation is a people, one nation. Who was allowed to vote when this nation was created? Why are you surprised that it's still hard for women and men of certain colors and certain backgrounds and stuff to be allowed to go vote? How many people were allowed to vote? Were women allowed to vote when George Washington got in? Isn't he supposed to be the paragon of virtue? Isn't he supposed to be somebody that never told a lie? They're not for you. I try to tell this to people all the time. A lot of white men couldn't vote because they weren't considered to be people when George Washington got in. Women couldn't vote because they weren't considered to be people when he got in. Don't get to the slaves or the chattel slaves, because the chattel slaves, not only were they not considered to be people, they were considered to be property. But once again, you have this in your mind. You don't know that there's a difference between a person and a people. The plural of person is not people. The plural of person is persons. People means nation. That's why what? You are a chosen generation. You are a royal priesthood. You are a holy nation. Why? Because you are a peculiar people. Do you hear what I'm saying? This is different. We have gotten so far removed from law that we are so into what is legal that we don't care about what's lawful. They are waxing us because we will not be lawful. What is the laws that we have in place to make sure that our sisters are protected? Why are you worried about a people who used to do scandalous things to your sisters and put seed in their belly that your sisters didn't even want, to try and now have to take care of somebody's bloodline that they never wanted them in the first place and have had to try to learn how to love it, right? Why do we trust them to make sure that they take care of our sisters? Where is your law for your sisters? These women are acting out of control. Where is your law to protect their right to remain feminine and divine? You want a feminine sister, but you have no vision and no mission and no land and no opportunity and no governing body and no sense to come together to say, I will protect her so that she never has to go outside of her femininity. She can stay away from having to be in masculinity, but masculinity shouldn't be toxic, because there's no such thing as toxic masculinity. If it's masculine, it's not toxic, it's natural. So I, as the masculine man, need to make sure she has an environment that she's protected in. Can she see herself in this environment? Will she be protected in all these different things? You want something, but you won't fight for it. But when somebody says, go to Vietnam, when somebody says, go to North Korea, when somebody says, go to Iraq, when somebody says, go back to Iraq, when somebody says, go to Afghanistan, when somebody says, be Republican or Democrat, you got a lot of blood on your hands. But when it comes to your sister, where's the blood? We are so quick to be like, man, the 15th Amendment, finally, black people could vote. No, you couldn't. Black men, some of them were allowed to vote. Black women could not vote. We didn't even stand up for them back then. But you're so busy applauding the 15th Amendment. They got you to think like them, where they didn't even let their own women vote. Why would you vote and not let your sister vote unless you thought that she didn't deserve to vote, just like he thinks his woman's not allowed to vote? Come on, talk to me. They get quiet. They get quiet. If you think it's so hard to get land, this and that, or whatever, it's not. But we don't give in. We don't give up anything. We got to beg and plead and prod and stuff or whatever. But let somebody say, hey, you know what? New Prada bag coming out, new Coach bag coming out, new Coco Chanel coming out. Coco Chanel was a Nazi. But we'll support that because you don't see your value in supporting yourself, because you think that it's more important to support those things that are legally offering you than the things that lawfully protect you. But that's why we said yesterday, Yahweh is my light and my salvation. Of whom shall I fear? Respect more than him. Yahweh is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? Don't be afraid to be you. That's why you say you will support and defend. I'm sorry, you say you pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation. It's not even you, because they don't even consider you to be a people, and you're not even trying to separate to become a people. But one nation, and thank you for the love, one nation. And then they say under God. Who is their God? Oh, y'all really don't want to go there. Who is their God? Who is God? Because the Bible doesn't, because the people who wrote the Bible, rather, you read in another translation. Once again, a transliteration. You're talking about Germanic stuff where gods can be whatever you want them to be, whatever spirit you want it to be. So they just say God to carry everything. And they did the same thing in your language. But the people who wrote that, they don't know anything about God. They don't even have any way of pronouncing God. They say Alham. But they don't know who God, who is God? Who is Washington? What is Washington, D.C.? We already showed you earlier. It's not a country, because it's not a state, and it's not even a city. According to law, Washington, D.C. is a territory. Now, question for you. Washington, D.C., the Washington Monument. What is the Washington Monument? What is the Washington Monument? Is it a dome? Is it a Greek dome? Roll with me. Is the Washington Monument a Greek dome? Is it a building? Does it look like the African American History Museum? Yeah, who is their God? For sure. But once you in, are you pledging allegiance to it? Do you live in it? Are you part of that public system? Who is their God? Who is God? It's an obelisk. And by the way, the obelisk is not Greek, correct? The Congress building is Greek, right? The obelisk is Kemetic, which some of y'all call Egyptian, because you're doing the Egypticos of the Greek thing. But it is Kemetic. It is African, right? But it is Kemet, right? Really coming even from Cush first, but it is Kemetic. And it represents who? What part is it supposed to do to make a certain nature? You call them gods once again, but you're not in the different cultures, so you don't know how things operate in different cultures. But in their culture, their nature, who was the nature that came from, then who it represents? Amen. I'm sorry, Zen, I missed you. I apologize. Right? And I apologize to anybody we're missing. We got several devices going on at this point. Praise Yahweh, all right? So it is you said nature means God? No, because God is a Germanic deity. They don't translate. It might be a translation, but not everything goes in translation, because natures don't operate the same way that gods do. And gods don't operate the same natures do. And natures don't operate like your regents do. And your regents don't operate like deists do. And deists don't operate all the time like deities do. And deities don't operate like Allaham. And Allaham doesn't always operate like Allah, depending on who you're worshiping and what version of those you are, right? So it's a different context, right? But that particular obelisk, it represents Osiris. What is the story, right? And then who's on top of the Congress building? The Greek part, where they're trying to marry the Kemetic part with the Greek part. So now you would be able to have this Greco-Roman mindset that really has an African attachment to it in your everyday life in this beast. This is at the National Mall. The National Mall is actually the territory that Washington, D.C. technically is. The obelisk, right, is there. And on the top of the Congress building is supposed to be Columbia, which is a Greek goddess. Right, but Columbia also is somebody who they're trying to change the story of, because she was ultimately first Isis. And the story goes like this: Osiris, obelisk, father Neter, or father God. Osiris was cut up into pieces by other Neters that didn't like him. Isis is flying around. That's why Columbia is on the top of the Congress building, and nothing can be built higher than her. She's looking for her husband and realizes that there's pieces of him all over the place. She puts the pieces together, but cannot find his phallus, or cannot find his penis. She then makes a mock penis, or you might even call it a dildo, and she puts it in place of where his phallus is supposed to be. She puts the phallus, or the mock phallus, there, and depending on which version you want to go into, he either comes back to life, or not to life. He either becomes a zombie, or he remains dead, but at least he can give seed to get her pregnant, because she hasn't been impregnated by him. So necrophilia takes place, right? And she rises phallus, this mock phallus, and becomes impregnated with Heru. And that's how Heru comes. It wasn't an immaculate conception. When people say that you copy off this and that or whatever. And so then and Heru, or is the modern Heru, or Horus, the Eye of Horus, comes out of the Congress building. Right? Why? Because they come out of the mother of the Congress building. So everybody who is a disciple of the Father God and the Mother God, or is born of them, are the people who run your country. And in case you missed it, the president is right down the street, right? And in case you missed it, the Supreme Court is right there too, on the other side. And in front of the Supreme Court building, they have a woman that's blindfolded. Well, now I think they covered her up. Her chest used to be all out, so you can see all the stuff. And she had the blindfold on. That was Columbia as well, right? This is embedded. This is religion. One nation under God. Yep, and they had the same setup in Alexandria. Matter of fact, they have the same setup in many places all over the world, including my son and I, when we went to the Memphis Zoo. I was surprised to find out when I walked in there, they had the reflective pool, had the obelisk, all that. Matter of fact, when you come into Memphis, they got a big pyramid there, right? Go over to Vegas, they got a big pyramid there. There's some obelisks and some reflective pools there too. The same thing going on. But somebody would say, oh no, you're just making stuff up. Like, when does it become enough smoke that we say there's a fire? When do we say that there's too many coincidences for this to not be coincidence? How you doing, more Israel? I'm just saying, at some point, we have to realize what's going on. Are you going to be lawful, or are you going to be legal? There's a lot of legal activity going on that has nothing to do with what's lawful. Right? How do they have the right to tell you and I that we can't worship who we choose to worship, but you can't say the Pledge of Allegiance without making sure that you bow down to a false god? I'm just saying, it doesn't make sense to me. You're gonna tell me and my people that we can't worship Yahweh, but you're gonna say that we're wrong and we're crazy and we're out there. But y'all are sitting up here trying to talk about necrophilia and teaching babies and putting this in the baby's head. I mean, if you deal in necrophilia, shoot, no wonder this country has a problem with stuff like pedo. No wonder. Real talk. No wonder they got a problem with that. Because you can't even deal with the fact that y'all are into dead stuff. So violent. Why is everybody so violent? Why does everybody have a mental health issue? You call it racism. And look, it is a system based upon competition. So I agree with that. But I mean, why is everybody so violent? Why can't everybody wait for violence? Violence in the NFL. Violence in the NBA. Y'all say, oh no, it's not violent. The NBA is very violent. It's very violent. You can't wait for violence and everything. We can't wait for the baseball fight, the hockey fight. Violence. The kingdom of heaven suffereth violence. You were warned about it. The kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, and the violent take it by force. Amen. Praise Yahweh for the protection from the wicked. Why? Because protection from the wicked, what protects us again? Law. Because law doesn't give rights. Law protects rights. Come on, somebody. Right? You give them praise right there. Law doesn't give rights. Law protects rights. Now, once again, what are the laws that govern us? UFC as well. I didn't even mention UFC. UFC, boxing, many different things, right? Now Dana White, owner of the UFC, now he got y'all watching the whole, right? There's video games out now. I gotta watch my son because he's trying to play the video games where you square somebody up, right? Oh, that was a great one, right? You get to slap them. And in the video game, it's crazy. Once you slap them, they fly across. And he said it's going to be just as big, if not bigger than the UFC one day. We're going to line up to watch people just slap each other. Because look, you might not be great enough to be violent on the football field, but you can sure enough slap somebody. There are going to be people going into training and working out certain parts of their bodies just so they can get a better slap. There are going to be people who are going to be training children to be able to take hits to the jaw and therefore will have concussions before they even get into the slapping competitions. I mean, this thing is coming and we don't even see the evil in it because we don't care about what's lawful. We just think as long as it's legal. I mean, the babies are playing the games where they can't wait to play the games. And then when you slap them, they have numbers and stuff too. So as you watch them fly through the air and it's 100, 200, 300. Oh man, can you believe it? Oh man, bro. What do they say now? Bro. Look, bro. That's the new thing now. Everybody say it, no matter what color. Look, bro. 750 on the slap. Now we're giving rewards for slaps? How long do you think it's going to be before we're going to reward and be like, dang, you shouldn't have hit your woman like that. But yo, man, that was like a 750 point slap. And it sounds funny until you realize that this stuff is real. I've said this before, I say it again. We have no law to even govern our tongues. We have no law to even govern our tongues. Ain't no such thing as a good black man. Ain't no such thing as a good black woman. Who you talking about? Why are you the only people that talk like that about your people? Other people got enough sense to have laws, even if it's suggested laws, verbal contracts. We ain't gonna come out here and verbally slap each other. I heard somebody say the craziest, not the craziest, y'all forgive me. I'll just say it's one of the craziest things I've ever heard before. Heard a sister, and when I say sister, I mean female, she was European. However, talking about, I don't want to have a child that's a son because they're the problem with society today. Do you not hear what you're saying? Do you know that at some point, if nobody's having sons, then humanity dies? Do you not realize that we need each other? If anything, I would think that your response would be, I would hope to have a son because these men out here are not of any value. And so I'm going to make sure that mine is trained correctly. I mean, I would hope that if you see a problem with these men, that you start dealing with these boys and that you make sure these boys have actual men according to your culture and your standard and laws that are provided for you for positivity in prosperity in the way that you desire to be pushed. I would hope that you would have the propensity to ensure that they would have proclamation over their lives that would allow them to become the example that you want to be projected upon the earth. And instead, no, you giving up, you saying it's okay. You basically already decided to have a spiritual and mental abortion. That's what we know. We've gotten so much into everybody else's stuff that's legal that we're not even considering what's lawful. I'm not here to tell you, look, I have no heaven or hell to put anybody in, but I did mention the abortion word. I won't stay too much into it because a lot of y'all can't handle that conversation and you get so mad and you try to, kick me off and you try to say that I'm saying something I'm not saying. I have no heaven or hell to put anybody in, right? I have no heaven or hell to put anybody in. I really don't. So I'm not judging. I'm not saying that you're going to hell because of this or whatever, right? But hear me when I say this. It wasn't that long ago that would have been crazy for somebody to say that you can become a human being without being human at some point. I just lost somebody. But I need you to comprehend this because some people don't get this. There was a time not too long ago where it would have been crazy to say that somebody could be a human being without actually being a human being at some point in their life. Let me say that again, because I know this is going over somebody's head, but I'm gonna fix it for you. But I just want you to hear it first, because some of you, if I say it, what I'm gonna say first, some of you would be lost and would automatically shun me and say I'm part of the patriarchy because you want to listen to my heart and you want to listen to the actual words that I'm saying. So allow me to say it one more again. There was a time where it would have been crazy to say that you were a human being without being a human being the whole time of your existence. What do I mean by that? There was a time to where you could not tell me that because you were in the mother's womb that you were not a human and that you became a human when somebody decided you were a human. It wasn't that long ago. Now, somebody says, sure, times can change. Doesn't mean that has to be right. I can take you on what you're saying to a certain degree. But hear what I'm saying. It doesn't make, watch this. It doesn't make sense. I know what we're trying to do there, but look, a fox is a fox, whether they're in the womb or not. And you know what's crazy? If somebody had a pet fox, or somebody had a pet chihuahua, or somebody had a pet snake, and that pet snake, chihuahua, or fox was pregnant, and somebody stepped on that fox's belly and said, well, these aren't really babies yet anyways, you would get upset. There would be people who would lose their mind. Let Peter find out. But then now, people will say, right, like this actually happened. See, we got to see the context of it and who this is supposed to be helping. There have been sisters that have been pregnant with babies, and police officers have kicked them and stood on their bellies, and they've lost the babies. When they get to the hospital screaming, sometimes could have had a birth and needed help, and they wouldn't help the woman when she got to the place where she was arrested and didn't even do anything that deserved to be arrested. But they did all this stuff, put her into a false early labor, let the baby die, and then basically got off. Why? Because, hey, that's not a baby anyways. See, and it goes. See, I'm not even gonna go there. I'm gonna just say this, Scott. We're here, right? But see, that's when it gets to a place to where I can't have a conversation. Oh, hey, how you doing, babe? My wife is on the Honorable Mind. As always, check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. You can also check her out on TikTok at Bloom and Flourish too. All right. But thanks for being on, babe. Appreciate you. Love you very much. Right. But hear what I'm saying. If I change the definition of what a human is, then is anybody human? See, you want the right. You have the right to be whatever you want. But see, if there's no law to protect the human right, then how can we protect anybody? See, there's a reason why I can't protect my woman. If what's in her belly can't be protected, then she can't be protected. This is coming from a cultural point of view, educational purposes only. I know some of y'all can't handle this. That's why I said I'm not going to talk about it too long. But we don't want to have actual conversation of what's going on. You're so much into what's legal and not realizing what's legal is not always lawful. What's lawful is not always legal. Right? Like, do you comprehend that even though there are people who don't even realize they're considered to be artificial people on paper, that there are chimpanzees and there are robots and there are dogs and there are horses that have that have statuses as human beings, but they don't consider some of you to be human beings? Did you know that? Did you know there are robots that have more status than you? There you go, Sister Nadine. What's the difference between the truth and a lie, right? I'm just saying, we don't recognize it, but people will argue about this. If you don't even agree, see, watch this. Now, this is cultural. We believe that Yah knew you before you were formed in your mother's belly. That he knew you before the foundation of the earth and had a vision and a plan for your life. Beforehand, he knew you. That's what we believe. But if you believe that you have no value and that Yah wouldn't even think about you, right, this is why, by the way, you don't take care of your bodies the way that you should. You know that conception, right, starts, you need to recognize you are one part of the puzzle, right? There's going to be two people that's supposed to come together as one to allow fruit to multiply, that seed might be able to be planted, right? And so when somebody tastes of your fruit and seed is therefore uncovered and left, thank you for the love, appreciate it, to be planted inside of the womb, inside of the garden, baby girl, make sure your garden is okay. Are your eggs healthy? Are you dealing with endometriosis? Are you wearing things that don't allow your vaginal region to be able to breathe? I'm just being honest with you. Are you all right? Are you dealing with problems with progesterone? And estrogen levels are messed up, and testosterone levels are messed up. Pancreas isn't working, right? Your child is born with this, because you might not, are you getting, you drinking fine, but are you drinking so much that your eggs are getting damaged? You only get one set. Brothers, you got to be even more diligent. But I guess maybe you can get away a little more depending on how you want to look at it. But your seed comes in cycles. So what you had 2 weeks ago, month and a half ago, most, is not going to be there. The seed is the best of you. The semen is the best of you. The egg's supposed to be the best of you. But if you're not feeding your body the best, at some point, it's going to miss things that are supposed to be sown into it. And you got brothers that don't even take care of themselves. See, this is why we have dietary law. Come on, somebody. This is why we have dietary law. Holy Spirit, come on. How you doing, Brother Dennis? Come on, Holy Spirit. They don't want to talk back to me. They don't want to hear this today. This is why we have dietary law. A dietary law is not just for you. There's generations depending on you to take care of yourself. Negro. I was trying to say something else. There's people depending on you. That at the moment of conception, you will be the best version of yourself. They're going to live longer because you take care of yourself now. It's not just about you. Just because it's legal to eat high fructose corn syrup, that doesn't mean it's lawful. Just because it's legal to walk around angry all day doesn't mean that your body's not dealing with those things. It's not lawful. It's not natural law for you to walk around angry all day. Forgive. Some of y'all babies are being born with scowls on their face, right? Angry out the womb because you haven't forgiven something. Forgive. Do you not know that the baby learns anger in the womb? Forgive. Your baby doesn't learn language when it's born. Your baby learns language before they're born. But if you don't want to give me that, they hear language when they're in the womb. Forgive. Those shows you're watching today are the shows that your baby is watching. Part of you is watching that, and part of your spouse is watching something. You better make sure y'all get it together. They're learning how to disrespect women now. You ain't even laid down with a woman, some of you. Praise y'all for you keeping your virginity, if you got it, or at least being chaste in the season that you're in your life. Whatever you're watching, that's what your child is going to watch. Mothers, whatever you're watching, that's what your baby is watching. You believe in generational curses. You believe in DNA memory, but you're not doing anything about it. Forgive. Let some of that stuff go. Fast from some of these things. Somebody right now, if you would go through a 2-day fast, the part of you that needs to heal would be healed. You know why? Because you would get the human growth hormone that you need. That's law. That's natural law. Yeah, it's legal to eat 3 times a day and have 3 snacks and have a midnight snack and have a meal or have an extra meal or extra snack because you're feeling sad and this and that or whatever, but it's not lawful. It's not lawful. There's a difference between what is lawful and what is legal. And people can hear this and they say, oh, here comes this guy and he's dressed this way. He's got his hair this way. He must be one of those black Hebrew Israelites. And they try to demean what's going on, this and that or whatever. And hear what I'm telling you. Because I love you. If I didn't love you, I wouldn't tell you the truth. Because of the love that I have. By this will men know that you are my disciples, by the way you love one another. And don't love one another according to your standard. Love one another the way that I have loved you. All right, so I'm going to love you the way that he loves me. Let me tell you the truth. You are dealing with certain things because you are so busy trying to do what's legal. And talking about that what's legal is according to the laws of the Most High. By the way, it's not just the Mosaic law. You know that anything a king decrees, it must be established. Why? Because it is law. Stop talking about, see, this is a problem. We got preachers who have never actually studied monarchy. We have people who go to church every day. We have people who are followers of the way. We have people who are Israelites. We have people that are whatever you call yourself, and you've never studied how a kingdom works. If you're in a kingdom, whatever a king decrees must be established. He must do it first, and you must follow suit. That's the reality. You're in a republic now and you do whatever they tell you to do. You don't even realize that you have the right to be religiously exempt from almost everything they ask of you. Because you don't know how law works. You don't know that if you don't know this, you'll never be able to contend with this. If you don't know how this word works, which is what they're trying to confuse you in, they have the same language written in law, then you won't know how law works. Right? Whether you believe in it or not, that's what they're doing. You're not putting as much as you think you are. They're using this, but you don't put your hand on this and put your right hand in the air, do you? You don't put it on the law. You put it on this law. And what they do in here is try to say, hey, we want you to get away from who you authentically are protected to be in this. And they say, go ahead and utilize this. And you don't know what they're doing. It's not about what's illegal. It's about what's lawful. Stop talking about what's legal. If you're in a position your child has to go to school, fine. But as soon as you're able to take them out of school, school is legal, but it's not lawful. You don't have to send them to school. School them yourself. And if you need help with it, we help with that. At least every Saturday, we're giving them some stuff that they don't get anywhere. My wife is an excellent teacher, and she has a heart to take care of these babies, just as I know you guys have a heart to take care of your own. Why not take accountability and responsibility for our own? When your baby has to go to school and answer, we just talked about George Washington today. He is not the first president of the United States of America. But what does your baby have to put on a sheet of paper? That he is. Why? Because it's legal to get them to lie. If you're okay with them legally lying, then keep sending them there. But as soon as possible, maybe you want them to follow the law of truth and make sure that they stop participating. At some point, when are we accountable for ourselves, our actions, our teachings? Who shall believe our report? It's interesting. You always stop at Romans chapter 10, verse 9. Anyone who call, or I'm sorry, if you confess and believe in your heart that Elohim raised from the dead, that thou shalt be saved, right? Verse 10 tells you that you're still on your way to righteousness, right, lawful standing, and on your way to salvation, being salvaged. Just because you're saved doesn't mean you've gone to the best version of yourself. Stop telling people the end all be all is that you're saved, because Yeshua himself says that you need to have some salvation. That means you got to go through a salvaging process. That means that you can't be what you want to be. You have to look at the specifics, the specs of what was created originally, find out what happened to dirty it up and everything, and then you have to make sure that you bring it back to its original intent. And many people never operate in their original intent because they are so busy trying to make sure that they conform, that they are never transformed, right? And this is why you miss verses 13 through 16. You stop at Romans 10:9. You don't even go to Romans 10:10. You don't, and you love Romans 10, 11, and 12 because you think that means that anybody can do whatever, but that means that even anybody coming into this has to obey what the word says as well. But then you don't want to read verse 13 through 16 because that's where it gets real. Verse 13 says, anyone who calls upon the name of the Lord, they shall be saved. You like that? But what's the next part of the verses? We're doing Romans 10, 13 through 16. Anyone who calls upon the name of the Lord, they shall be saved. But how can one be saved if they don't believe? You kind of like that. But then How can one believe if they haven't heard it? What are your children hearing? And how can they hear it if it's not being preached? What are you proclaiming over your own house? How you doing, Nairobi? What's being proclaimed in your own situation, your own house, your own heart, your own life? And how can one preach it if they're not sent by the Most High? Do you even know who you are? I mean, this is your Bible. Read your Bible. It'll bless you. It's not my Bible. I didn't make it. I didn't write that. That's in your word. Who's going to preach this thing if you don't? It says, how beautiful are the feet of those who walk in the way, because they were not called Christianos. That came later on. They were called followers of the way, because Yehoshua is the way, the truth, and the life. And no man can get to the Father, Abba, the source, except by him, because it's Aleph Bet, father-son connection. So no one can get to the Father except through the Son who comes out the right family. That's what Aleph Bet means, the Hebrew characters, the language that gave birth ultimately to the alphabet that you still use today, because you still speak Greek, even when saying that you speak English, because you write Greek. Meanwhile, the rest of it after that then says, it says, as Yesaiah said, or as Isaiah said, who shall believe our report? And thank you for that. It's 11:11. If you're on, babe, it's 11:11, right? Who shall believe our report? Who shall believe our report? This is not theirs. Why are you teaching your child based over there? This isn't theirs to report. Does Fox News allow CNN to report on their program? Come on, somebody, just roll with this. Let's make it practical. Stop making it so mystical. Does Fox News call people up from CNN and say, come over here and report? I'm not even saying maybe they should or shouldn't. That's another argument. But hear what I'm saying. They don't do that. Why? Because you're not affiliated with us, and you don't represent us, and you're not paid by us. And ultimately, you're going to have to conform to whoever it is that you're under. Does CNN ask for Fox News to report on their stuff? Matter of fact, even if people agree on stuff, even if it seems like they're in agreement on stuff, is ABC going to have somebody from CBS report on their stuff? And vice versa. Is FS1 Sports, is Fox Sports, right? FS1, are they going to allow Skip Bayless to be on a show with Stephen A. Smith from ESPN? Is ESPN going to allow the vice versa? As much money as they probably would make by doing that for a couple of weeks, they're not going to do it. Why? Because you are their property. You are our property, intellectual property. And I'm not talking about you should be somebody's property. I'm just talking about that's how they look at it, right? Contractually. It's not their responsibility to make sure that you're up on law. This is what Yehoshua says about law. I could go to Matthew chapter 5, verse 10 through 12. I could go to Matthew chapter 7, verse 12. They're both in the Sermon on the Mount, but I'll focus on Matthew chapter 5, verse 17 through 20, then we'll take our leave. Hallelujah. Praise God. Right. Matthew chapter, we'll finish on this. And people who have been with me for a while, I say this like 2-3 times a lot, so y'all already kind of know what I'm going to say. But if y'all want to turn there real quick, Matthew chapter 5, verses 17 through 20, then we'll take our leave. Matthew chapter 5, verses 17 through 20, and then we'll take our leave. All right. And those who are on TikTok, by the way, well, if you're on Kofi underscore 43, if you're on Kofi underscore 40, you can switch over there. It's the same name, but it has the number 3 behind it. We're going to do our shout out at the end. If you've never done a shout out with us, it's when we put our information out. If you'd like to be able to learn more about what we do, not just in the live sessions, but classes, meetups, one-on-one, life coaching, marital coaching, different businesses that we have, people that are like-minded around all around the world, really, but especially in the United States of America right now. We're still pushing those who are in the Caribbean. We're trying to figure out something for you guys as well. And I'm still trying to figure out how to make England work, or the United Kingdom, maybe even. We got people kind of posted all over there. So we're trying. We're trying. But if you're on Kofi underscore 43, stick around for our shout out if you want more information on different things that we have, and some ways you can text us, email us, different things, so we can try and hopefully talk back with you and maybe help out on some things. Right? But Matthew chapter 5, verse 17 through 20. Matthew chapter 5, verse 17 through 20 says it like this. Verse 17, Yehoshua, or people call Jesus, right? Our Messiah, Yehoshua, he says this. He says in Matthew 5:17, do not think that I came to destroy the law or the prophets. I came not to destroy, I came to fulfill. The word fulfill there, by the way, does not mean to end anything. Fulfill does not mean end. Fulfill means to be put into effect. So he said, I came to show y'all how this works, to put it into effect. I didn't come to destroy the law of the prophets. Read Matthew chapter 5, verses 10 through 12 to see that once he's just repeating kind of sort of what he said earlier about be excited and realize you're blessed when they mad at you because you're doing the same thing that the law and the prophets did before you. Right? But Matthew chapter 5, verse 17, I came not to destroy, right, the law nor the prophets, but I came that it might be put into effect, that it might be fulfilled. Verse 18, behind that, Matthew chapter 5, verse 18, this is the Sermon on the Mount. This is the Messiah. So if you're mad with somebody, you got to ask him, you got to pray about this, right? Matthew chapter 5, verse 18, then says specifically, it also says right behind that, what does it say? Right? It says, until heaven and earth pass away, there should in no wise, right, not one jot or tittle be changed, right? We shouldn't change one jot, one tittle. Now, jot, if you're dealing with English, is talking about the dot over the I, because they didn't have the letter J when the Bible was originally written, right? That's a new letter. But the dot over the letter I, and then tittle is even talking about kind of like the way it's even written or something like that, right? But if you look at jot and tittle in Avla or Hebrew, he would have been saying that we should not change one, the most minuscule of measurements, because every character in Hebrew has a number attached to it. And it also says we shouldn't change the yao, the handwriting of it, even the way it was written should never have changed. You got to start asking yourself, why is there such thing as modern Hebrew when it should have never changed? This is according to the Messiah. Now, those who write out modern Hebrew do not believe that the Messiah has come. See, this is why stop being legal. It's legal to go ahead and print out a Bible, right, and get it copywritten as if you have ownership of it. Remember, what did we say earlier? You cannot copyright something or you cannot patent something. You cannot have ownership over something if what? If you do not modify it. So be careful. We're reading Bibles talking about, oh, so-and-so copywrote it, but they had to modify it. You know, if I publish something, I had to do this with one of my books. I wrote out a book. There's a book that we have now. It's about to start coming out soon again, 21 Days of Motivation. Before that, it was called 10 Days of Motivation. But when I wrote it from 10 days of motivation to 21 days, one of the things that I realized was I need to make sure I didn't have to change anything really at all. I kind of sort of did just because as I was editing it. But when I was going into 21 days of motivation, one of the reasons I made it that is because you have to change 10% of the words. So y'all assume that somebody's coming out with a translation and they call it something different or they get it published differently, but because the Holy Spirit led them. But if you don't change 10% of the words, then you cannot make money off of it. At least depending on who you register it to. Right? But Yehoshua says in Matthew chapter 5, verse 18, do not change the most minuscule of measurements nor the way it's written. If we keep changing it, what are we doing? We're patenting it. We're trying to take ownership over it. We're trying to make money off of it. Didn't our Messiah say, stop turning my Father's house into a den of thieves? I'm not saying that you can't go into a place and where something's being sold. What I'm saying is all we're doing, like literally, they were saying you couldn't give offerings. Offerings are lawful. So just because it was legal for them to go ahead and say we're selling 2 turtle doves for this sin, and we're selling this lamb, and we're serving this ox, and we're selling this goat and this heifer and this red heifer and this and that, like just because they could do those things legally, Yehoshua flipped over the tables because it wasn't lawful. Right? Let's keep going. Matthew chapter 5, verse 19. We're almost finished. Matthew chapter 5, verse 19 tells us when people try to come against this. This is what your Messiah says. You got to ask him why it is that you feel like you have to fight against this. Matthew chapter 5, verse 19, behind that, he says, anyone who doesn't live by the law and teaches others not to live by the law, you are considered to be the least in the kingdom of heaven. He says, however, those of you who live by the law and teach others how to live by the law, he says, you are considered to be the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. So, how you doing, Sister Shima? I don't think I said hello earlier, right? That's what he said. Once again, you got to ask your Messiah. If you believe, read your Bible, it'll bless you. You got to ask him why you don't believe in learning the law, and that's what it says. But let's not end right there, because then he makes it very plain in Matthew chapter 5, verse 20. Why is all that extremely important, especially for us who are in this beast today? Matthew chapter 5, verse 20, he says, you need to know the law greater than the scribes and the Pharisees. The scribes are the ones who write the law out. They're the ones who are supposed to make copies of it, to preserve it, to keep it. You need to know the law greater than the ones who are writing it out. Why is it that you say, look, y'all say stuff like this. Somebody says, well, you know, the law talking about this, and you know they just did this law. He said, well, that's for the legislators to know about. I don't care about that. What? You see, like how crazy it is? You know, somebody says, oh, well, you know, they're talking about this stuff as far as currency and stuff, and they're going to take away the dollar, blah, blah. I said, man, you know what? I'm not really worried about it. What? You're not preparing yourself? Well, you know, they're taking away all the food, and now they're starting to put stuff that, you know, they were just putting in shots. Now they're starting to put them in food. And you guys are just making it up. You guys say that all the time. You haven't studied law enough to see that people were telling you what they were doing in Tulsa, and you didn't believe them. And they were doing what they were doing to mothers in Alabama, where they were literally or not even mothers yet, to when girls got on their period, they would come into the homes of the families and take the girls and literally make it to where they couldn't ever have babies. And they did it because they had their parents who didn't study law or know how to read. They would have their parents signing X's and stuff, not knowing that they had signed away their rights as parents to their own children. By the way, you do it all the time. You just call it a birth certificate. You call it a social security number. You do it all the time. Have we not learned? How long does it take before, like, they keep hitting us with the same stuff? Do you not, I'm missing one. Tuskegee. Did we not learn from Tuskegee? To where they said that they were trying to help to heal you, and they were giving you syphilis to test you on it. Wasn't there some place, I don't know if it's St. Louis, but somewhere in Missouri, I believe, or isn't there somewhere in Missouri, to where they had all types of stuff before they started straight up giving you the, what is that stuff that we used to think were stuff that was spraying over the crops, but now it's, no. You know, the air stuff, they're putting this stuff and they put in the air, you see the lines, and you shouldn't be breathing it in. Chemtrails, yeah. And people said that was a myth. Like at some point, like, do we not? I'm just saying, at some point, are we not going to be like, yo, maybe we should start studying this stuff and stop saying it just because it's legal for them to put chemtrails. I'm sorry, babe, were you going to say something?
I was going to say those digital signatures that they have and the waivers that they have when you walk into a place. You know, you don't have time to read the whole thing. Most people do not read the whole thing.
Don't read the whole thing, and don't make sure your signature looks correct, because it's really hard. And and don't make sure you put UCC 1-308, right? Like we don't care. We don't care to do it. People will tell you straight, man, I'm telling you, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, this was going to happen. 5 years from now, this was going to happen. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, if you know who that is, she said that they were telling people in the 50s or 60s, they were starting to have meetings and stuff, and they were telling people, like, you know, there's going to be a time where, you know, these men are going to be out here in dresses. And y'all think that people are weird, or we're saying that we're against people. No, like, that was something that didn't happen. I'm not saying, like, you can argue, whatever. I'm just trying to tell you, as far as they told you something was coming, and people were like, there's no way. There's no way. Sure enough. Now, your watch this. And I'm not even trying to do, because I've told you this before, I don't have a heaven or hell to put anybody in. So it's not about me putting somebody in heaven or hell. Hear what I'm saying? Y'all don't even think about the fact that your hip hop artists, who are supposed to be the hardest dudes, which, by the way, why are you using such language? We don't even see the language to be sometimes the most sus language too. But the hardest dudes out there are the ones that wear the dresses now. Y'all forgot? I'm old enough to remember when Lil Wayne was kissing Lil Baby. Y'all forgot? I'm old enough to remember that. And then was telling y'all, oh no, man, that's just something that we do down here, whatever. And Juvenile was like, I don't know nothing about that. He was like, yo, they tell you whatever. He was like, I ain't got nothing to do with that, huh? Right? He said, I ain't got nothing to do with that. I'm not here to tell you that you deserve a spot in heaven or hell because of whatever. I'm just trying to tell you that people have been telling you, pay attention. The law for this, the law for this, the law for this. The laws are there to protect your rights, protect yourself. What is your language? What is your culture? What should you live by? What should you wear? What should you eat? What are they doing to you in prison? If men in prison, right, are oversexed before they go in, what do you think they're going to do to each other in prison? And then when they come out of prison, and now they DL and they raising the next generation, why do you think there's going to be a bunch of brothers on the DL? The law is there to what? The law doesn't give rights. The law protects your rights. Do you want to be lawful or do you want to be legal? Legalese doesn't seem to be helping you. I would suggest that you start being lawful. Right? I could try and come on here and tell you about a DS11 till you blue in the face. A lot of y'all aren't going to move until you see the mindset of it. And now we'll put our information up there. Well, if you're on if you're on Facebook, if you're on the YouTube channel, if you're on the podcast, if you're on either one of the TikTok channels, well, if you're on TikTok, well, Kofi_40. I don't know if we have our information. I got to update it. But Kofi_43, if you're on there, we have our. If you go to our main page and you want more information, you can click on our link tree. If you're on YouTube, the podcast, or Facebook, our information is in the description with the video or with the podcast. We're about to do our shout out. If you want to hang with us a little bit on Kofi_43 here on TikTok, and we'll start playing some music and stuff and show you how that works as far as how to get in touch with us and all this stuff that's going on. But thank you all so much for your time. I really appreciate you. It's time for me to take my leave. So we thank you again. We appreciate you. Thank you for being on with us early. For those coming for early rise Bible study session, thank you for those that rocked with us all day yesterday. Had a whole bunch of stuff on Saturday. Listen to Brother Vargas, who we're going to try to post this stuff up on Friday. We will be posting Minister Nine stuff up on YouTube as well from Saturday. Thank you to the sisters that came out to the women's meeting, to the people that supported Minister Tamal and allowed me to come on there. We had a lot of guests and made some new new friends, so to speak, and hopefully we'll see what goes on from there, that maybe we can work with these brothers and sisters to be able to continue in righteousness. But we thank you all for your time. I really do. We're on, if this is your first time being with us, by the way, we're on every rising at 8 a.m. Eastern New York time. We're on every weeknight on Kofi_42 at 8 p.m. Eastern New York time. We kind of sort of just come through during the day whenever we're able to have time on Kofi_40 if you're on the original channel. But we come on live quite a bit. And we have many different things we do throughout the world and throughout the neighborhood and stuff. So hopefully you guys will be able to join up. But like I said, we're on every rising as far as the live session, 8 a.m. Eastern New York time. We're on every weeknight at 8 p.m. Eastern New York time. Only exception to that is we are off on, or at least I am off on Wednesdays, even though there are others that come on different platforms that we have or their own platforms to be able to make sure that they give you the word of Yah. So if you want more information on that, like I said, you can reach out to us, text us, email us. We have Shabbat Bit Sefer or Shabbat Bayat Savar, Shabbat Bit Sefer for our children. It's Shabbat school, if you want to think Sunday school, but on Saturday. We have that as well. And we're excited. We continue to grow. Our children continue to grow. And my wife is a teacher of that. You heard her voice earlier, that she's also on here at Bloom and Flourish too. Once again, please check her out at Bloom and Flourish on TikTok, YouTube, or website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. So we thank you guys. We honor your presence today. We appreciate you. We're going to go ahead and get ready to do our shout out. If you've never done one with us before, just stick around a little bit and we'll show you how that works. Once again, if you're on TikTok, Kofi_40, just look for me under the same name, but add the number 3, and you can join us over there for the shout out. You all right? You can join us over there for the shout out. So thank you, everybody. We appreciate you on all the platforms. We look forward to talking to you guys soon again. And thank you for joining in. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow will be Q&A, by the way. So if you want to, I'm telling you in advance, I'll say it again this evening. Tomorrow will be Q&A. So prepare yourself. Yes, oh, and come on tonight as well, too. Minister Tamal, who's supposed to be on Thursday, she'll be on tonight. All right. At about 7:45 p.m. Eastern New York time. But tomorrow for the rising session, if you join us at 8 a.m. Eastern New York time, please, ma'am, please, sir, have your questions ready. Even if you want to come on and ask questions. Now, those of you who are part of what we do on a regular basis, you'll probably get first dibs to be able to do so, because sometimes we don't know who people are and people do some crazy stuff that gets us in trouble. But we will try our best to open up the platform if you want to speak on TikTok, or if not, you can still, at least put something in the chat. But we'll just open up for Q&A. So it's been a little while since we did our last Q&A session. We'll open up for Q&A first day. All right. So please have your questions, comments, concerns ready, and we'll try to start right off, because I try to start off and I end up talking because nobody has one. So I'm giving y'all heads up. Tomorrow, Q&A, 8 a.m. Eastern New York time. If you have your questions ready for us, we'll dive right into them. If you want to even call in and talk something through or whatever, we'd love to have you on, especially if you're SOC. We give you guys precedence first, but anybody, as long as you're respectful. If not, we will have to, have you to go off, okay? Off the channel. But thank you guys. We appreciate you again, and we respect everybody on here. As always, this has been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. And until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again, please remember, as always, Yashada, that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you are fearfully, wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family. Peace. To those of us that are still on TikTok on Kofi_43, this is how the shout out works. In case you've never done one with us before, the music is going to begin to play. Once to begin, and we ask, please, if you don't mind waiting for the music to play. Once the music